Naruto. I get a pair of hands of gods and ghosts at the beginning. Chapter 61. Just when the audience was annoyed, Hatake Tsukumo's figure suddenly appeared in the center of the venue. He shouted loudly, "Sunagaku Hyakura Katsu." As soon as these words came out, there was sparse applause from the audience. After all, they just came to watch the exciting battle and support Konoha's own ninjas. If you want to applaud to express congratulations, Sunagaku, who has a grudge against Konoha, is not worthy at all. At this time, most of the villagers still carried the grief and hatred of World War II in their hearts. Yi Kang didn't care and returned to the rest area with a cold face. Ching, on the other hand, lowered his head, not daring to look at anyone, especially Mr. Mizukage on the high platform. "The burning release, you are so powerful," Sarutobi Hiruzen complimented casually, without any envy. After all, Konoha is home to two major blood families, the Uchiha and the Hyuga, and has capital that makes other ninja villages the envy of them. A mere burning escape is, in the final analysis, just someone playing with fire. The third cage smiled lightly and said to the other cages, "You're showing off your humiliation." HMPH. Onoki snorted softly, disgusted with the two people's indifferent looks. When it comes to the limits of blood inheritance, their Iwa ninja village has the least. The only ones that can be used are dust escape and melting escape. But the current Iwa ninja village is in an embarrassing situation. No one can inherit the dust release, only Onoki himself can use it. The four-tailed Jinchuriki Lao Murasaki, who possesses melting release, has long since left his identity as an Iwa ninja due to his discord with the village. With such a comparison, Onoki would inevitably feel angry and feel that they were showing off. As for the loser, the fourth Mizukage Godachibana Yagura, his face was very calm and he didn't feel any shame at all. He has watched Ching grow up and is very aware of this child's strength. It is really difficult to defeat Jōdun Yi Kang. Although it was a bit embarrassing to admit defeat, Guju Yagura recognized Ao's choice from the bottom of his heart. As a ninja, you can exert greater value while living. At this moment, the audience gradually calmed down and looked forward to the second game. Hatake Tsukumo stood in the middle of the field and shouted loudly, "The second draw begins." In an instant, the electronic screen in the center of the venue began to scroll again, tugging at the heartstrings of every audience member. "Stop!" With a loud shout, the name on the electronic screen stopped again. Kurigakur Terumi Mei vs Iwagakur Lois. Seeing this result, the audience's excitement suddenly stopped. Why is it Kurigakur again? Do we need to see Kurigakur again? Probably not. I heard that the girl has 2 blood inheritance limits, so she shouldn't need to use mist. If there's still fog, I'll fall asleep. In the rest area, Terumi Mei didn't move when she saw her name. Even the comments from the audience did not disturb her state of mind. She stepped out, but glanced at Yifeng unconsciously, only to find that he didn't even look at her. "Aren't you worthy of attention with your beauty and strength?" Terumi Mei frowned slightly, grabbed the corner of her clothes and walked towards the venue with a hint of resentment. "Uchiha Yifeng, please watch me carefully, my strength is much more than that simple." Wangtu, who was sitting silently on one side, also started to move. His broad body was like a big mountain, and he already had the appearance of an adult. At this moment, he looked like a giant, wandering among the dwarves. Soon, he went to the venue and stood looking at Terumi Mei, waiting for the battle to begin. "Are you ready?" Hatake Tsukumo asked. The two of them nodded, their expressions becoming stern. "Then, start." In an instant, Hatake Tsukumo left, leaving the battlefield to the two of them. Looking at the mountain-like Lois, Terumi Mei knew that she could not engage in close combat with the opponent, so she quickly retreated. But how could Huangtu not know her purpose and quickly form a seal? Escape from Earth. Sneak in the earth. The next moment, he squatted down suddenly and slapped his hands on the ground. Fluctuations of chakra suddenly came out, and then, Lois's huge body suddenly merged into the earth, like a fish entering water, and instantly disappeared. "Wow, formidable. It seems to be more exciting," the audience immediately exclaimed, looking forward to this battle. During the battle, Terumi Mei looked at the disappearing Lois and was not too panicked. After all, they Kurigakur also have similar ninjutsu, and can sneak into the deep sea and take the opportunity to attack the enemy. She carefully felt the trembling under her feet, and waited vigilantly for the Lois's attack. Lois didn't try to be mysterious and quickly launched an attack. From the ground beside Terumi Mei, a pair of thick palms suddenly shot out and grabbed her neck with unabated force. The vigilant Terumi Mei naturally would not be caught, and her delicate body ducked to the side to avoid the palm. She jumped back and escaped, once again widening the distance between the two parties. But after Lois jumped out of the earth, he had already guessed her intention and formed another seal, escape from earth, the art of beheading in the heart. His hands suddenly hit the ground, and Terumi Mei, who had just stood firm, suddenly felt something bad. Suddenly, a pair of thick hands suddenly shot out from the ground and grabbed her ankles tightly. Before Terumi Mei could react, her delicate body was grabbed violently and dragged into the earth in an instant. Huang Tu's honest face showed a smile, thinking that he had already won. When the audience saw this scene, they all showed excited smiles. They finally saw a pretty exciting battle. Although it ended a bit quickly, there were no powerful ninjutsu. But the scene of escaping into the earth had already given them a complete shock. However, just when everyone thought the battle was over, boom, Terumi Mei, who was pulled into the earth with only one head exposed, suddenly turned into a piece of wood. Huang Tu was slightly surprised, suppressing his previous pride of victory in his heart. The next moment, he suddenly had an ominous premonition and hurriedly ducked aside. Just as he jumped out, a ball of yellowish acid suddenly shot out, corroding a big crater where he originally stood. You can hide pretty quickly. Terumi Mei chuckled as she stood on the branches of a tree in the venue. You're not bad either, Lois said angrily, his voice extremely rich. After analysis, he has determined that Terumi Mei used the substitute technique as early as when he used the decapitation technique in his heart. The battle between the two was still tense. At this time, Mei Terumi raised her head, cast her gaze towards the rest area, and landed on a certain figure. But the other party's eyes didn't look at her at all, and they didn't even pay attention to the battle. Suddenly, Terumi Mei frowned. Do you think my battle is not exciting enough? Then I'll let you know. At this moment, Yi Feng was looking up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, his eyes extremely dull. His mind was completely occupied by one idea. That's how to learn to reincarnate in the filthy earth. Although copying would release from Senju Hashirama, it is only possible, not absolute. But how could Yi Feng give up? He had to try it himself no matter what. But from yesterday to today, he has never been able to think of a feasible solution. After all, the sealed book is not something that anyone can just read if they want. In the original book, Naruto, if it were not for the Sandame's acquiescence, his first step into the Hokage building would have been taken down. But now that it is not wartime, Yi Feng cannot obtain the corresponding meritorious service and get the opportunity to read the sealed book. After much deliberation, the only feasible way is to sneak in secretly. But with Yi Feng's current strength, it would be impossible to sneak in. What's more, the relationship between the village and Uchiha is becoming more and more subtle. If he fails to infiltrate, the entire family will be pushed to the forefront. Everything is difficult to achieve. Well, sighing sadly, Yi Feng came back to his senses and cast his eyes idly on the battlefield. At this moment, Terumi Mei had turned her head and stared at Huang Tu with anger in her heart. This look made Huang Tu a little confused. He was calm a second ago, but why did his face suddenly change? Could it be that this is how scary women are? Huang Tu shuddered, quickly got rid of the messy thoughts in his mind, and stared at Terumi Mei in a prepared manner. His pretty face was cold, and he quickly formed a seal, water release, water dragon bullet technique. In an instant, surging chakra fluctuations came out of her body and transformed into majestic energy. A ferocious water dragon suddenly jumped up and entrenched itself in the sky above her. Huang Tu's eyes narrowed, and after thinking for a moment, he formed the same seal with his hands. Earth release earth dragon bullet technique. The next moment, a ferocious earth dragon rose from the ground and stared viciously at Terumi Mei. For a moment, the water dragon and the earth dragon faced each other tit for tat, full of unparalleled power, causing the audience to exclaim repeatedly. Is this a dragon? It's so domineering. I finally used a powerful ninjutsu, and this time I didn't watch it in vain. Hurry up and fight, one soil and one water, I don't know who is stronger. The excited shouts echoed in the venue, but did not disturb Terumi Mei and Huang Tu. At this moment, Mei Terumi held the seal with both hands and turned her gaze to the rest area aside. This time, Yi Feng finally cast his gaze and paid attention to the battle situation. Terumi Mei smiled coquettishly, thinking it was her and Wangtu's momentum that attracted each other, and immediately stared at Wangtu ready to go. Suddenly, the water dragon behind her roared and danced its huge body towards the Lois. Not to be outdone, the Lois spurred the earth dragon to fly out and collided with the water dragon. Boom! The huge sound echoed in the venue, and all the audience were shocked and surprised by such power. However, the strength of the two was about the same. The water dragon and the earth dragon were intertwined for a while, but there was no obvious advantage or disadvantage. Lois had already expected such an outcome, and immediately gave the earth dragon the last bit of power, letting it die together with the water dragon, creating an explosion. Wow! The rain was mixed with mud, like a heavy downpour, covering half of the battlefield. Taking advantage of this moment, Lois formed a seal again, and the chakra in his body surged. Earth Release Shantu Technique. In an instant, two huge hemispheres rose up and crashed into Terumi Mei from both sides. Although the two hemispheres are quite huge, their speed is not slow at all. They will close up in an instant and crush Terumi Mei into a pulp. But she didn't seem worried, and formed the seal very calmly. Melt Escape Monster Melting Technique. Yellowish acid suddenly spurted out from her mouth and landed on the hemispheres on both sides. You know, this acid is strong enough to melt Susano. Although Mei Terumi's current strength is not cage level, her ability to melt acid cannot be underestimated. The two hemispheres were just a mixture of ordinary clods of soil. They were instantly reduced to nothing under the corrosion of acid. Lois frowned secretly. This was his first time fighting against a ninja with such an escape technique, and he felt extremely troubled. Among ordinary escape techniques, whether it is fire escape, water escape or wind escape, they can hardly take advantage of earth escape. In other words, the thunder escape is quite restrained against the earth escape. But Terumi Mei's two special blood successors, whether they are melting type or boiling type, almost all have corrosive abilities and can easily deal with earth type. It may be very difficult to win. Terumi Mei naturally knew this, and looked at the muddy and water-stained field with a charming smile. The next moment, she formed a seal again, activating the chakra in her body. Melt Escape Melting Monster Eat Liquid. In an instant, she opened her mouth and spat out the globs of acid like cannonballs. Whoosh! The sound of breaking through the air echoed across the battlefield, and Lois hurriedly avoided it, darting around in the muddy field. But despite his strong body, he was really not good at speed and was almost hit by acid several times. But in the end, he managed to avoid all the acid and got a chance to breathe. But Terumi Mei would not give him a chance to rest and stood on the branch of the tree to form the seal again. Boiling Escape Chow Mist Technique. As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her mouth again and sprayed out yellow mist. Huang Tu was about to dodge, but he was shocked to find that Mei Terumi did not attack him. I saw that she was spitting the mist around, and did not spray it deliberately towards the Lois. What does it mean? Huang Tu watched in astonishment, but the mist quickly spread and forced him back. But a scene that made him even more confused appeared. As the mist spread, it slowly disappeared and disappeared. There was nothing special except for the unpleasant sour smell that filled the air. He was really confused and had no idea what Terumi Mei's intentions were. After all, what happened in front of him really didn't look like an attack, and it didn't cause any harm to him. He was so confused, and the audience in the venue was naturally even more confused. But what everyone pays more attention to is Terumi Mei's powerful ninjutsu. This girl's mouth is so powerful, it feels like she can spurt out anything. No, just those few shots made big holes in the ground. I bet you a bowl of Ichiraku ramen, and this Kurigakure little girl will definitely win. When the crowd was excited, Yi Feng in the rest area leaned on the railing and said to Kakashi not far away, "Slow down your breathing, be careful of poisoning." Kakashi sniffed the sour smell that gradually entered his nose, and looked at Yi Feng in surprise. This smell is poisonous. Otherwise, what do you think? Is that girl just showing off her skills? Yi Feng curled his lips, already knowing the outcome of this duel. In the field, at some point, the muddy ground was covered with dissolved acid. It was mixed with the water from the previous water dragon bombs and spread over almost 2/3 of the entire battlefield. Gradually, the color of the acid liquid changed from yellow to green, and there was an unpleasant sour smell. Huang Tu stood near the wall and finally noticed this. His face darkened in an instant, and he realized that he had fallen into a trap. Terumi Mei first used water dragon bullets. No matter whether she avoided or resisted, the entire battlefield would become filled with water. Then she used melting escape to project the acid into the puddles, gradually filling the entire battlefield. The last and most important step. Terumi Mei used boiling release and spit out a piece of yellowish mist with a sour smell, which gradually covered the battlefield. Although the mist seemed to have disappeared, it actually merged into the acid on the ground, causing an inexplicable change. Otherwise, the color of the acid will not turn green inexplicably. Although he didn't know what the consequences of this change would be, Huangtu's heart was already half cold when he smelled the sour smell that echoed at the tip of his nose. He was 70% sure that this smell contained toxins. If the battle cannot be resolved as soon as possible, he will attack his heart with poison and lose his life. But how could he be willing to give up like this? After all, he was the only one in the entire Iwa ninja village who entered the main competition. If you are eliminated, the whole village will be embarrassed. And his father, the third Tsuchikage, Onoki, has always valued face the most. If he loses, I'm afraid he will have to be treated like a family. Thinking of this, Huangtu looked at Terumi Mei, who was still standing on the branch of the tree, and rushed in decisively. Ba 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 ba. In an instant, the soles of his shoes began to melt, making bursts of sounds as they were corroded by the acid. Huangtu was not surprised by this, but it also reminded him that he didn't have much time. If the battle cannot be ended before the soles are completely corroded, then his feet may be exposed naked to the acid and allowed to corrode. By that time, his entire foot may be irreversibly injured. Even, melt directly. Gritting his teeth, Lois quickly approached Terumi Mei, but the other party was not a spectator and immediately launched an attack. Boiling Gui. Liquid. Quote. Terumi Mei opened her mouth again and spit out acid liquid that was comparable to cannonballs, bombarding the path of the Lois. As a last resort, Lois could only change the route with his heavy body and continue to make detours. After a while, he finally approached Terumi Mei with difficulty and brought her within his attack range. He formed a seal without hesitation and used his strongest strength, escape from earth, the art of mountain and earth. In an instant, two huge hemispheres appeared again, pressing towards Terumi Mei from both sides. But this time, the two hemispheres were completely larger than the last time, and the density of the rock formations was also much higher than last time. Terumi Mei felt something in her heart and also used her special skills. Boiling long. A large amount of high-temperature mist sprayed out from her hair, and instantly gathered together, turning into a giant dragon with teeth and claws. Under Terumi Mei's control, the dragon suddenly stretched out its two claws and struck the two hemispheres hard. In an instant, the huge force of the two hemispheres brought together was resisted by the giant dragon, and enough explosive power was lost. The next moment, the dragon's claws suddenly broke out of strong acidity, which quickly corroded the hemisphere. Wow! For a while, the loot of the dragon seemed to cut the tofu, and the two hemispheres were made into pieces. The Lois watched this scene incredible, and I didn't expect my full blow to be resolved by Meimei. Can't the ninja who has no blood relay really can't become the strongest? The endless haze instantly shrouded the heart of the Lois. He was very frustrated because he failed to inherit his father's dust. Although he had a lot of talents on the soil, the facts at this moment told him. There is no blood. It is a pure weak. According to Miming's battle, this has fully proved this. Special blood successor has a great restraint on ordinary usurgery. After running down, he breathed heavily, and he had already inhaled a lot of poisonous gas. At this moment, the chaotic mood has brought tremendous pressure to the heart. Suddenly, his expression was stiff, his eyes seemed to be blinded, and he completely fell into darkness. The next moment, he fell directly on the battlefield of acidic liquid, and there was a shuddering sound. The three generations of toying on the high platform stood up suddenly, and subconsciously rushed into the field. Since the acidity is spreading throughout the battlefield, his heart has been hanging, and he is very worried about the safety of the Lois. Even the idea of letting the Lois be given. After all, the corrosiveness of dissolving and boiling crickets is too strong. Damon Wood does not want to disable the Lois, which affects the growth of strength. You know, the Lois is not only his son, but also the successor he cultivated. If something goes wrong, the future of Yanren village is at stake. However, when he was about to act, Qinyu Shuomao appeared in the field and quickly took the Lois out of the battlefield. At the same time, he announced loudly, "This scene, fog hidden Zhao Mei Mingsheng. For a while, the audience cheered and gave applause to Zermei. Although it is not very enthusiastic, at least it is much louder than Yi Kang. This girl is really amazing, and even built a swamp. That fog dragon is too handsome. I just collapsed the nirvana of Yan Ren. Strong, can the ninja of our wood leaf win her? Everyone talked excitedly, looking forward to the next game. Ji Miming returned to the rest area with a smile, and looked forward to throwing his eyes into a figure. It should be very beautiful to win himself. Will he look at himself? She smiled sweetly, but after seeing the figure clearly, she suddenly stiffened. I saw Yi Feng look up at the sky again 45 degrees. It's been too long. This is too long to play this game. The abominable Zhaoming, dissolved boiling and boiling Han originally restrained the Lois, isn't it good to end the battle at all? Do you have to do such a hand, which makes the venue like a swamp, and it is full of acid liquid? In this case, it takes a lot of time to clean up and restore the venue. Suddenly, he looked back and found that Zhao Meiming was looking at himself resentful. Resentment, I'm still resentful. Yi Feng glanced at her deeply, turned his head simply, and stopped looking at her. According to Miming, he was very wronged, and he stared at me. He even stared at me. Why is he? At this time, Ao walked up to Terumi Mei with a smile on his face and praised, winning is very beautiful. Unfortunately, Terumi Mei was so angry at this moment that she had no time to pay attention to him and walked aside with a cold face. Qing froze on the spot inexplicably, a little confused by her reaction. Shouldn't you be happy if you win the game? However, he didn't hesitate any longer and slowly walked aside and cast his gaze on the field. After placing the Lois, Hitaki Sakumo appeared again and said to everyone, due to the venue, the game needs to be suspended for a while. Please wait patiently. Seeing the place turned into a swamp, the audience expressed their understanding. They saw with their own eyes that when Lois was rescued, the flesh and blood on the soles of the feet had been corroded, and even the bones were corroded. And within a few seconds after he fell, his back was corroded, and his flesh and blood became a mess, which was really horrifying. If games continue to be held in such a venue, people may have turned into pus before the game even started. In an instant, a large number of ninjas appeared in the venue and began to use various ninjutsu to clean up the acid, trying to restore the venue to its original appearance. For the audience, this is also a very interesting scene. After all, most of them are not ninjas and do not understand the nature of fighting at all. They only know how powerful the ninjutsu is to judge whether it is powerful or not. At this moment, it is a feast for the eyes to see a large number of ninjutsu being unleashed in the venue. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Onoki on the high platform said impatiently, I'll take my leave for a while. The other shadows also knew his worries and did not stop him. Sarutobi Hiruzen said with concern, I have arranged for the best medical ninja to treat Lois. Don't worry, nothing will happen. Hearing this, Onoki nodded and expressed his gratitude. But he was even more anxious in his heart, and immediately flew up and rushed to the place where Lois was being treated. He was very worried that Konoha's ninjas would take advantage of the time they were treating Lois to do some dirty tricks. Although this idea is a little bit arrogant, as a shadow of a village, and now in the territory of an enemy village, he must be extremely vigilant. In the lounge, Yi Fengsheng lay helplessly on the railing, watching the venue return to its original state little by little. Bored, he thought for a while and said to Kakashi on the side, Hey, Kakashi. With your father watching over you, you won't perform abnormally later, right? Kakashi was stunned for a moment. He had never thought about this problem at all, but he quickly shook his head and said, of course not. Yi Feng pondered for a few breaths. Judging from Kakashi's state of mind, it seemed that he would not be affected. After all, his character has always been quite calm, so even if his father is hosting this match, he won't feel any discomfort. At most, he just wants to show his strength and gain praise from his father. Thinking this, Yi Feng withdrew his gaze and silently stared at Hitaki Sakumo in the field. If he didn't die, he would probably be a strong contender for the 4th Hokage. After all, his strength and reputation rank high in the entire ninja world. If he is prevented from committing suicide in the future, he will definitely have to find a way to make him give up his position as Hokage, and maybe, even win him over. With his support, as long as the Uchiha clan can establish extraordinary achievements in the 3 battles, they will definitely be able to obtain the 4th generation position. As for Namikaze Minato, just make some soy sauce. His military exploits at Canopy Bridge were accepted by the Uchiha clan. Although he said this, Yi Feng also knew that there was a long way to go and changes would always come faster than planned. And the best candidate in his mind, Uchiha Fugaku, currently does not have the strength of a Kage level. Without the Flying Thunder God technique, it will definitely be extremely difficult for him to seize Canopy Bridge's military exploits. Unless he can open the Mangekyo Sharingan and use Susanoo to achieve a great feat that one man can defeat even 10,000 men. As he thought about it, Yi Feng's thoughts gradually drifted away, as if he saw the scene of achieving his goal. What brought him back to his senses was Hitaki Tsukumo's voice. I've kept everyone waiting for a long time, let's move on to the third game. For a time, the gradually bored audience became excited and looked forward to the exciting showdown. Yi Feng turned his attention to the field and found that it had been roughly restored to its original appearance after being washed by various ninjutsu. It's just that the land is a little wet, not dry. But like this, it can no longer interfere with the battle. At this moment, the electronic screen in the center of the venue started to scroll again, and the only 4 names left were flashing. Stop. As Hitaki Tsukumo finished speaking, the electronic screen suddenly stopped scrolling. Konoha Hitaki Kakashi vs Sunagaku Sayuno. Kakashi was stunned for a moment, but didn't think much about it and immediately walked towards the field. Sayuno, who was standing in the corner, walked out silently. No skin could be seen in the black robe covering her whole body. Yi Feng looked at the two of them and vaguely felt that this would be a quite exciting battle. Although Sayuno never appeared in the original work, he always felt that the other party was not simple. At first, he had explored the area around the tower several times and only entered the tower after confirming that there were no surviving ninjas. But not long after he entered, Sayuno also arrived at the tower. It was all a matter of front and back. This might be a coincidence, but Yi Feng is more inclined to another possibility. That is, his cleaning operations have long been observed by the other party, and all actions have been completely exposed to the other party's eyes. For unknown reasons, Sayuno did not choose to break in, but waited silently until Yi Feng entered the tower. Based on this alone, Yi Feng did not dare to underestimate Sayuno. From him, Yi Feng saw the true qualities of a ninja. To complete the mission, do whatever it takes. In order to be able to enter the tower, he could endure it for such a long time until Yi Feng finished cleaning up. This kind of person has absolute calmness and regards himself completely as a tool, a murderous weapon. And Sayuno's performance all along fully illustrates this point. While he was deep in thought, Yi Feng didn't notice that someone was staring closely at him. That was Hinata Yoshiki in the rest area. He never expected that he would meet Yi Feng. Uchiha Yefeng, at only 5 years old, killed 3 Sunagaku genin in Windfire City, and even almost killed the Burning Release Yekora. At that time, they were ambushed by Sunagaku and were facing a siege. This is the information recorded in the mission information, which can be accessed by almost every big family. When Hinata Yoshiki first heard about it, he didn't believe it at all. After all, a 5-year-old child who lives only a fraction of his life, how can he be stronger than a genin? But the encounter in the Death Forest changed his mind. Hinata Yoshiki clearly remembers that he was rushing towards the tower in great excitement at that time. He didn't use much time. After entering the Forest of Death, he gathered the scrolls very easily. But what he didn't expect was that someone was blocking him on the way to the tower. And in the other party's eyes, there is a pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan eyes. There is no doubt that he is Uchiha Yi Feng. Faced with his obstruction, Hyuga Yoshiki will naturally not compromise. He is one of the top geniuses in the Hyuga family. The two immediately started a fierce battle, and the fight was inextricable. In the end, Yi Feng showed his weakness first, and he seized the opportunity and attacked the Mingmen. At that moment, his heart was like a fountain, pouring out endless ecstasy. But with a bang, Yi Feng's figure instantly dissipated and turned into a cloud of smoke. Hinata Yoshiki's heart suddenly froze and he was in disbelief. From that moment on, he realized the gap between himself and Uchiha Yi Feng. It's like a natural chasm. One of Yi Feng's shadow clones was able to fight him for a long time. If it weren't for the fatal flaw in the shadow clone and the inherent lack of chakra, the loser might even be him. Thinking of this, a haze flashed in Hinata Yoshiki's eyes. He began to feel a little desperate. If he met Kakashi or Sayuno of Sunagaku, he would have the confidence to fight. But facing Yi Feng, he only felt helpless. The strength of the two of them is not on the same level at all. Yi Feng looked at the two people standing in the field and did not notice the situation of Hinata Yoshiki. At this moment, Hitaki Tsukumo was already standing in the middle of the field. He didn't look at Kakashi twice and looked straight ahead very impartially. Are you ready? Kakashi nodded, indicating that he could start. But Sayuno suddenly said, wait a minute. To everyone's surprise, the voice coming from under the black robe was actually a female voice. Without waiting for Hitaki Tsukumo to ask, she took out a scroll and spread it on the ground. Untie. The palm wrapped with gauze slapped the word, Feng, in the center of the scroll, causing a burst of smoke. The next moment, the smoke dissipated, and a strange-looking puppet appeared in front of Sayuno. At first glance, it looks like a human figure, but upon closer inspection, the limbs are like spider legs, extremely small. The puppet's head is also very weird. It seems to be an eagle, with a sharp mouth shining with sharp edges. Tsunagaku's puppet master. Kakashi narrowed his eyes and didn't care at all about Sayuno's gender, focusing entirely on the battle. In the rest area, Yi Feng showed interest. He really didn't expect that Sayuno was actually a girl and a puppet master. At this time, Yi Kang walked up to him and said indifferently, what? Are you surprised? I'm a little surprised. Yi Feng looked at Yi Kang with a very calm tone. Yi Kang had no intention of starting another dispute and continued, then you will be even more surprised. Oh, do you think she can win? Yi Feng chuckled. Yi Kang raised his head slightly proudly, of course. I'm afraid you will be the one surprised. Yi Feng gave her a flat look. Inexplicably, Yi Kang's body and mind trembled slightly, and he felt that there was magic in Yi Feng's words, making people involuntarily convinced. Just like his monster-like talent and strength, people cannot think of transcendence. For a moment, the two of them were silent and turned their gazes to the field, as if they were secretly engaging in a contest. Hitaki Tsukumo looked at the two people who were getting ready and shouted loudly, then, begin. In an instant, he left the battlefield and returned to the viewing area. Base. The sharp blade is unsheathed. Kakashi held the short sword and rushed towards the opponent quickly. But Sayuno's movements were also very fast, and the chakra lines in her 10 fingers had already been connected to the puppet. In an instant, a puppet as tall as an adult suddenly rushed out, with its slender arms popping out blades, and slashed at Kakashi. Clang! The short sword and the arm sword collided, and dazzling sparks burst out. Kakashi slashed continuously, but his eyes were fixed on Sayuno not far away. He knows very well that to win, subduing the opponent is the key. You should find a way to avoid the puppet in front of you and not compete with it. But if you really can't avoid it, you can only find a way to destroy it. Kakashi took a few steps back, suddenly reversed his steps, and rushed towards Sayuno from another direction. But Sayuno, as a puppet master, is very aware of her own shortcomings and has obviously practiced hard. She pulled her bandaged palm sharply, and the eagle puppet instantly flew back, almost back in front of her. The next moment, her fingers moved quickly again, controlling the puppet to face Kakashi. Clang! The sharp blades collided again. Kakashi looked at the extremely hard puppet in front of him and narrowed his eyes. He already understood that if he couldn't destroy it, he would never be able to get close to Sayuno. However, there are difficult and easy ways to destroy it. The Hitaki family happens to have mastered a very easy one. The next moment, the short sword in Kakashi's hand suddenly burst into blue arc light, accompanied by a faint thunderous sound. This is a special guidance technique in the Hitaki sword technique, which can inject chakra into the blade and even incorporate changes in its properties. With it, Kakashi can easily cut off the chakra line connecting the puppet master to the puppet, making him a nemesis-like existence. You know, during the Second Ninja War, Hitaki Tsukumo won the title of Konoha White Fang with this skill. And Tsunagaku's puppet master suffered numerous casualties at his hands. The most famous ones are the son and daughter-in-law of Chiyo's mother-in-law, and the father and mother of the Red Sand Scorpion. It can be said that Kakashi has become invincible with this move. Yi Kang's face immediately darkened when he noticed this, and he glared fiercely at Yi Feng next to him. Yi Feng shrugged indifferently. You see, you are the one who is surprised. That's not necessarily true, Yi Kang said unconvinced, placing his hope on Sayuno. At this moment, Kakashi suddenly accelerated his attack rhythm. Although the chakra line was difficult to capture, he could still observe the general range. Swish, swish. The shadow of the knife was flying all over the sky, carrying a dense blue light. But Sayuno didn't react at all, and there was no sign of impatience at all, and the operation was very smooth. What I have to say is that her skills are very good. Even in the face of Kakashi's violent attacks, the puppet did not lose contact. Although some chakra lines were inevitably cut off, she could always control the puppet in time to avoid subsequent attacks. Taking advantage of this gap, she was able to activate chakra lines and reconnect the disconnected parts, handling it with ease. After a series of attacks, Kakashi realized this. Even if he cuts off the chakra line connecting the puppet, as long as there is one left uncut, Sayuno can save it with her superb skills. After all, there are too many mechanisms hidden in the puppet's body. Even if he wants to take advantage of the victory and pursue it, he can cut off all the chakra lines in one go. But Sayuno could always rely on the remaining chakra lines to activate the mechanism, causing him unimaginable trouble. You know, Sunagaku's puppet master is very good at using poison, and Kakashi doesn't dare to use it forcefully. But it wouldn't be a big deal if the stalemate continued like this. Kakashi knew very well that his chakra capacity was simply not enough to sustain a long-term battle. After all, he is only 6 years old now, and like Yifeng, chakra is very scarce. As for the flagwood sword technique he used, although it was powerful, it consumed a lot of money. Even if he finally succeeded in consuming all the mechanisms in the puppet's body, he would probably have lost his combat effectiveness by that time. It would be very difficult to defeat Sayuno who has no consumption. After realizing this, Kakashi's eyes flashed with determination and he quickly took a few steps back. Seeing this, Sayuno did not choose to chase, but quickly repaired the severed chakra lines and controlled every joint of the puppet. At the same time, he secretly thought about how long the remaining mechanisms in the puppet's body could last. Kakashi was also happy to see this scene. He inserted the short sword into the ground in front of him and quickly formed seals with his hands. In an instant, a bright blue light focused on his left hand, erupting with the sound of 1,000 birds singing in unison. Yifeng watched with interest. As early as the last time in Windfire City, Kakashi used Chidori. But it was just a prototype, and Yifeng couldn't see it clearly at the time. After so many months, Kakashi's Chidori must have become more and more perfect. He opened his Sharingan and silently copied this ninjutsu. Although his strength is good, his family knows his own affairs. Without exposing the hand of the gods and ghosts, his explosions always lack the decisive effect. The strongest attack method is still the sword technique used in Fengwo City, Wild Wind Slash. This really makes Yifeng, who has the hand of God, feel ashamed, but it's not like he hasn't tried hard. As a young child, he really had no contact with famous ninjas. Most of my time on weekdays is spent on cultivation. If it weren't for this Chunin exam, he wouldn't even be able to come into contact with so many ninjas. But he was satisfied, at least now he could copy the Chidori with the Sharingan, which meant he had a small killing weapon. In the field, the sizzling sound kept echoing, and Kakashi's figure was submerged in a bright blue light. Although Sayuno couldn't see his face, she stared at the blue light closely to judge his position. Chidori, Kakashi shouted low and suddenly threw out his left hand, carrying a sharp edge. He suddenly ran out, lifted the short blade on the ground with his right hand, and injected blue chakra again. For a moment, Sayuno stared at him in full alert, not daring to relax even a little bit. Under the bright blue light, Kakashi's vision was also affected, but with his excellent fighting instinct, he still captured Sayuno's position. He rushed towards the opponent quickly, but saw a tall figure suddenly blocking the front. "Do you still want to block me again?" Kakashi sneered, quickly approached the puppet, and skillfully slashed towards the location of the chakra line. After fighting for a period of time, he was already very familiar with this. Wow, the sharp short blade fell, and there was a slight sluggish feeling. There is no doubt that the chakra line has been severed. But Kakashi's movements didn't stop at all. He suddenly changed his position and slashed with his left hand like a sharp blade. The same sluggish feeling came again, and as the Chidori fell, the tall puppet fell directly to the ground, and a heavy sound was heard. "You're really good at shooting left and right, Kakashi." Yifeng chuckled, feeling that Kakashi had already established the victory. Yi Kang's face looked a little ugly. She naturally knew that once the puppet master lost control of the puppet, there would be nothing he could do to save it. In an instant, Kakashi took action again and quickly ran towards Sayuno. With the stimulation of Chidori's body, he moved extremely fast and was close to the opponent's side in an instant. Hiss! Chidori let out a low cry and suddenly landed on Sayuno's neck. But she was someone who could be easily captured. Even though she was at a disadvantage, she still showed no sign of cowardice. She bent down very calmly and turned around to avoid Chidori. At the same time, the edge of her black robe was raised high, like a sharp blade, and she quickly cut towards Kakashi. Faced with this counterattack, Kakashi waved his short sword and easily resisted. The next moment, he got close again, and Chidori and Tonto attacked the opponent together. Sayuno is a puppet master after all, and her thin and petite body is not good at physical arts at all. After a struggle, Sennin's short sword suddenly fell on her neck. You lose, Kakashi said coldly, already taking control of the other person's life. But Sayuno looked at him, revealing a pale and bloodless face. She laughed strangely. Are you sure? A cold air suddenly shot up on Kakashi's back, and he suddenly realized that something seemed not right. But at this moment, a sharp pain suddenly appeared in his neck. Not good. Kakashi looked horrified and raised his Chidori to instantly stab the place where the severe pain appeared. Boom! A spider puppet the size of a fingernail suddenly fell down and fell to the ground. Kakashi looked at it in disbelief, feeling very confused in his heart. Exactly, when did it happen to me? He quickly searched his memory, wanting to know the reason why the spider puppet appeared. He vaguely recalled that just when Sayuno was taking cover and raising the corners of her black robe, something seemed to be flying towards him. Could it be that time? Kakashi thought quickly, becoming more and more certain of this guess. After all, throughout the entire battle, he made no mistakes. The only problem is that after using the Chidori, his field of vision will be disturbed and he will not be able to carefully observe the surrounding situation. Presumably this spider puppet was able to land on him silently because of this. Thinking of this, Kakashi's indifferent heart could not help but feel annoyed at this moment. Chidori was his own ninjutsu, so he was very aware of its shortcomings, but he never gave up on it. But what he didn't expect was that this time someone would catch on to this shortcoming and take advantage of him. While he was thinking, Kakashi's short sword was still placed on Sayuno's neck, but before he knew it, a dark shadow had appeared in front of his eyes. Poisonous. Kakashi suddenly realized that the spider puppet he had just shot down had venom hidden in its body. At this moment, it had already been injected into his body along with the wound. His consciousness became increasingly depressed, and the black shadow in front of him continued to erode his vision like a demon. Kakashi wanted to get rid of this feeling, but all he saw was a smile on Sayuno's pale face, looking at him indifferently. And this became the last picture he saw before falling into coma. With a crash, Kakashi fell directly to the ground, and at the same time, Hatake Tsukumo's figure also appeared on the field. Although he was worried about Kakashi, as a referee of the game, fairness was essential. But for a while, he couldn't tell who won. If this was on the battlefield, Kakashi would have cut off Sayuno's head before he was poisoned and would not have spared any effort. But the current situation is that Kakashi lost his fighting ability first, although he once subdued the opponent. After a slight hesitation, Hatake Tsukumo said loudly, "The result of this game will be decided by the four shadows through discussion. Please wait patiently." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved to the medical team on the side of the field and worked with them to lift Kakashi onto the stand. He has been poisoned and needs treatment as soon as possible. Sayuno watched this scene silently without any expression. She took back the puppet indifferently and returned to the rest area, with an indifferent look as if she didn't even care about the result of the game. The audience enjoyed it quite a bit, even though the only gorgeous ninjutsu was Kakashi's Chidori. But the rhythm of the whole battle is very fierce, which makes people feel passionate and happy involuntarily. However, most viewers are not clear about the situation at this moment. The knife was placed on Tsunagaku's neck. Why did he suddenly fall to the ground? That's Tsunagaku's puppet master. A master of poison, he must have been poisoned. Poisoned. This little Hatake guy doesn't seem to be injured, right? There's no injury at all. It seems like I was bitten on the neck and it's bleeding. The audience was discussing intensely, full of yearning for the magical ninjutsu, and wanted to be a part of the battle. After dealing with Kakashi, Hatake Tsukumo immediately flew to the high platform and asked Sarutobi Hiruzen for instructions. "Hokage-sama, what do you think of the outcome of this round?" Sarutobi Hiruzen pondered for a while, and did not express his views first, but looked at the cages beside him. What do you think? Onoki's face was gloomy. Because of Huang Tu's injury, he had no intention of talking now. The fourth Mizukage Goju Yagura said, the essence of the Chunin exam is to test the strength of ninjas. There is no doubt that Hitaki Kakashi is stronger. Moreover, if this was on the battlefield, Sayuno would have been beheaded and lost her life. Even if Kakashi Hitaki was poisoned and passed out, there is still the possibility of treatment. No matter what, Hitaki Kakashi should be judged to be the winner. Goji Yagura said quite objectively, even though he has a baby face, he is actually almost 30 years old. It is also the shadow of a village, and it is very fair in its view of this issue. But the third Cage's face was a little gloomy, and he spoke slowly, but the fact now is that Kakashi Hitaki has lost his fighting power, and Sayuno is the winner. Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at him, knowing very clearly what Shoujuju was in the other person's heart. After all, Sayuno is Sunagaku's ninja. If she can advance smoothly, Sunagaku will account for 2 of the top 4. Even if he failed to win first place in the end, his face would be bright in front of the 4 major ninja villages. Although Sarutobi Hiruzen agreed more with Godachibana Yagura's point of view, as the host, he wanted to behave as well as possible. Thinking of this, he asked Onoki, who had not yet spoken, I wonder what Mr. Iwakage thinks. What's there to think about? Sunagaku wins. Onoki waved his hand impatiently, but he said this with purpose. You know, all the Iwa ninjas have been eliminated at this moment, and the ranking of the top 4 has nothing to do with Onoki. But he has always been jealous of Konoha and doesn't like him. It is also very good to have the opportunity to attack the opponent at this moment. At least, the annoyance in his heart was relieved a lot. Sarutobi Hiruzen took a puff from his pipe, his eyes unreadable in the smoke. After thinking for a moment, he said to Hitaki Sakumo, Sayuna Katsu. Hitaki Sakumo listened to the conversation of the shadows and had already expected such a result, so he simply returned to the field. This round is judged by the 4 shadows, and Sayuna wins. Some of the audience were stunned, some understood, and some even shouted excitedly. It was the Suna ninja who won. Why? The knife was placed on the opponent's neck. That's right, if it were on the battlefield, the kid from the Hitaki family would have won long ago. For a time, the audience was dissatisfied, but after all, they were just audiences and could not decide anything. In the rest area, Yi Kang suddenly became excited and excitedly slapped his palm on Yi Feng's shoulder. See, it's you who should be surprised. Sayuno is the one who wins. Yi Feng did nothing about this. He slowly turned his head and showed a playful smile. If you pat me on the shoulder, I will tell you that you are frivolous towards me. TCH, you're not a woman. Yi Kang retorted harshly, but realized that his behavior was too frivolous and quickly retracted his palm. Not to mention that the 2 of them belong to different ninja villages, judging from their relationship in the past few days, it is not suitable for intimacy at all. Yi Feng smiled and suddenly came up to her and teased, is it okay for men to be casual and frivolous? Of course, it's not. Yi Kang looked at Yi Feng's cheek, which was close at hand, and his pair of dark eyes, like black holes, attracted her attention. For a moment, Yi Kang felt shy and his cheeks turned a little red. It turns out you can blush too, but it's quite pretty. Yi Feng chuckled, walked downstairs, and headed to the field. This round, it's his turn to play. Yi Kang looked at his back and clenched his fists tightly, feeling ashamed and annoyed, with a strange emotion in his heart. Terumi Mei, who was resting on the side, saw this scene and clenched his fist louder than Yi Kang. At this time, she was still extremely resentful, and her heart was filled with resentment towards Yi Feng. This guy just glared at me for no reason and made other people's faces turn red as if nothing had happened. Simply not human. Terumi Mei gritted her teeth tightly, but she never realized that in addition to being full of resentment, there was also a vague feeling in her heart. In the field, Yi Feng and Hinata Yoshiki stood still, staring at each other. After receiving the prepared answer, Hitaki Sakumo raised his arm and slashed it downwards. Start. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure suddenly disappeared from the scene. Hinata Yoshiki immediately activated his Byakugan and made the starting gesture of soft fist. Yi Feng glanced at him lazily, then activated his Sharingan and drew out his short sword. With the memory of the Shadow Clone, he is very clear about Hinata Yoshiki's fighting style and methods, and has no doubts about victory. After all, the shadow clone fought with the opponent inextricably in the beginning, and now the main body personally ends up fighting. How can it be invincible? However, Yi Feng was not careless, his eyes gradually sharpened, and a fierce fighting spirit rose throughout his body. The next moment, he rushed out quickly and stabbed the opponent with a short knife. Hinata Yoshiki did not relax at all. Even though he was aware of the final result, he still wanted to try his best. At least, you can't embarrass the Hyuga family. In an instant, he stepped out, nimbly grabbed Yi Feng's fallen palm, and stopped the short knife in front of him. And his other palm had quickly attacked one of Yi Feng's acupuncture points. But Yi Feng is very familiar with the Hinata family's soft fist. It can inject its own chakra into the opponent's body, thereby destroying the meridians or stopping the flow of chakra. No matter how powerful a ninja is, his internal organs are extremely fragile. If he is not careful, his lungs will be broken by a soft fist and he will die directly. Yi Feng, who did not dare to be careless, immediately retreated, waving his short sword and walking beside Hinata Yoshiki. Whoosh! The dagger fell from time to time, its sharp blade shining like a crescent moon, with a chilling feeling. Facing this increasingly fierce offensive, Hinata Yoshiki's face gradually turned bitter. He was using his bare hands. Although Ru Quan was not afraid of any sword skills, it was a situation of equal strength. At this moment, Yi Feng had already shown strength comparable to that of a Jonin, and his sword skills were like a storm, and he danced like an airtight sword. Hinata Yoshiki even felt like he was out of breath. He deeply realized that if he continued like this, he would lose badly. Thinking of this, Hinata Yoshiki no longer hesitated, a flash of determination flashed in his eyes. Even if you have to lose with dignity. He shouted loudly, "Return to heaven." In an instant, huge amounts of chakra spurted out from the chakra points all over his body, and his whole body spun rapidly. In just a moment, a blue spherical barrier appeared around him. Boom! Yi Feng dropped his sword, and a huge shock force instantly came from the blade, and his body flew out uncontrollably. Hinata Yoshiki had already anticipated this, and quickly stopped and stared at Yi Feng with his ferocious eyes. Soft boxing technique Bagua 64 palms. Yi Feng, who had flown out, had just stood firm when he inexplicably seemed to see an illusory gossip covering him, causing pressure to rise suddenly. But at this moment, he has not lost the ability to move. Hinata Yoshiki's rash use of soft boxing may not have much effect. The next moment, the opponent rushed in front of him and waved the first palm. Relying on the ability of Sharingan, Yi Feng easily dodged and changed his position at high speed. The second palm, the third palm, the eighth palm. Yi Feng wandered in front of Hinata Yoshiki without any pressure, not even letting him touch his sleeves. But Hinata Yoshiki obviously had no intention of canceling, and even if it had no effect, he still continued to attack vigorously. Soon, his 64th palm fell hard, hitting Yi Feng's heart. Facing this blow, Yi Feng did not make any mistakes and dodged it calmly. Those blood-colored eyes reflected Hinata Yoshiki's somewhat gloomy face. However, Yi Feng did not relax and immediately launched a counterattack, stabbing the opponent with a sharp blade. But at this moment, Hinata Yoshiki raised his arm and said silently, "I admit defeat." As soon as this statement came out, the audience was shocked. Why did he admit defeat? Aren't the Uchiha brats been suppressed and beaten by him all the time? That's right, the Uchiha kid has no power to fight back. The blue light shield is quite powerful, and the last fast attack was also extremely sharp, but why did you just give up? The audience, who didn't understand combat at all, were talking about it. In their opinion, Hinata Yoshiki, who had used Kaden and had a very sharp attack, had an absolute advantage. But in the eyes of all the ninjas, Hinata Yoshiki's choice was very correct. After all, they could all see that there was a huge gap in strength between Hinata Yoshiki and Yi Feng. Even if they used all their trump cards, they could not cause any harm to Yi Feng. However, his hard work earned him a lot of support from the villagers, and he became their favorite target. Lost the game, won the hearts of the people. Hinata Yoshiki obviously did not expect such an outcome. His initial thought was just to protect the face of the Hyuga family, and the loss should not be too ugly. However, he was quite satisfied with this ending and slowly smiled. Hitaki Tsukumo came to the field and shouted, "Uchiha Yaifengsheng." For a moment, there was sparse applause from the audience, seeming to be quite dissatisfied with Yi Feng's victory. After all, he was from Konoha and had the home field advantage, so this should never be the case. Yi Feng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, inexplicably feeling that he had picked up the wrong script, and suddenly felt like a villain. But he didn't care anymore. He took back the dagger indifferently and walked to the rest area. And with the end of this game, the candidates for the semi-finals have been born. Tsunagakure Hayakura, Kurigakure Terumime, Tsunagakure Sayuno, Konoha Uchiha Yefeng. Seeing that there were 2 Tsunagakure ninjas, the audience immediately became dissatisfied. 2 sand ninjas, are all the ninjas in our village so weak? They were not eliminated. Alas, there is only one Uchiha Yi Feng left. Can he do it? If Hinata Yoshiki had not given up, he might have been able to reach the first place. In this situation, it's a pity. I don't have any hope for Uchiha Yi Feng. I only hope that the little girl from Kurigakure can be more powerful and help us defeat Tsunagakure. Even if she gets the first place, it's still better than being taken away by Tsunagakure. For a moment, the audience looked sad, and they were not optimistic about the next situation. On the high platform, the third case cage didn't care about the comments echoing in the field, and smiled brightly. After all, being able to occupy 2 seats in the top 4 has proved the strength of their Tsunagakure team. In the next few years, as long as Hagakura and Sayuno grow up smoothly, they will definitely become the backbone of Tsunagakure in the future. If a war breaks out, Tsunagakure's heritage will far exceed that of other ninja villages. You must know that the reason why the Chunin exams are jointly held is to provide a platform for each village to display their heritage. What is foundation? Genius is foundation. When outstanding geniuses grow up, they are all capable of defeating hundreds of enemies on the battlefield, possessing the ability to change the situation of the battle. And the ninjas who can enter the main competition of the United Chunin examination are almost all the top geniuses in each ninja village. Let these geniuses come together to compete and determine the ranking, which also represents the heritage of each village. As long as there are enough geniuses, ninja village's strength will grow by leaps and bounds in the next few years. But if it is a village with few geniuses, in the next few years, it may have to carefully guard against other ninja villages. Just like Iwagakure now, there is not even 1 seat in the top 4. In a few years, the strength of the only genius Lois will probably not be able to surpass that of Terumi Mehakura and others. In the competition between Ninja Village, Iwagakure will be at an absolute disadvantage. This is indeed the case in the original work. Although Iwagakure participated in the Third Ninja War, he relied entirely on numerical superiority. The only combat power that can be used is Onoki himself and the grown-up Lois. Otherwise, Namikaze Minato would not have been able to establish a reputation resounding in the ninja world at Kanabi Bridge. Foundation, that is, genius, is crucial to every ninja village. No wonder the third case cage smiled brightly. Seeing him smiling from ear to ear, Onoki felt extremely angry and snorted coldly. The third case cage didn't care at all and just thought it was the wail of a bereaved dog. From this Chunin exam, all cages can see that Iwagakure is destined to decline. Goji Yagura didn't have much idea. Their country of water was far away from the land, and thus far away from the center of the dispute. He praised indifferently. Iwagakure's strength is very good. Generally, it is really average. The 3 generations of Fengiying set their hands humbly, but the smile became more and more smooth. Sarutobi Hiruzen said indifferently, "The case cage is too humble, maybe the first place will be yours." Haha, not sure yet, let's see again. The third case cage's heart skipped a beat. Originally, he had not considered the first place, but when Hiruzen Sarutobi mentioned it, his heart began to throb. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at him deeply, feeling quite indifferent to the fact that only one person from Konoha had entered the top 4. He is very aware of the talents of this generation of young people. In addition to Yi Feng, Kakashi also has the ability to enter the top 4. It's just that his self-created ninjutsu seems to have certain flaws. But this must not negate his talent. Sarutobi Hiruzen is very confident about the future of Konoha. After all, Konoha has been the strongest village since its founding, and no one can overturn its status. At this moment, the audience is still talking. Yi Feng was lying on the railing indifferently, just taking it as a joke, going in one ear and out the other. On the contrary, Yi Kang and Mei Terumi glanced at him secretly, with a hint of concern. Yi Feng never noticed this, but coincidentally, they both noticed each other's gaze. For a moment, the two looked at each other, and their eyes gradually became cold, with a tit-for-tat feeling. And they themselves couldn't explain why. They only knew that they hated each other very much and didn't want to meet each other at all. Maybe it's because they were born in different villages. Of course, it may also be that the beauties have a mutual understanding, and they don't want to meet a woman who is not weaker than them in all aspects. At this time, Hitaki Sakumo in the field spoke. Next, let's play the first game of 4x2. The drawing begins. In an instant, the names on the electronic screen changed again, touching everyone's heart. Yi Feng watched idly, but at this moment, he finally noticed something was wrong behind him. He felt like there were sharp thorns in his back for no reason, and there was a faint stinging pain. He turned around and saw the two of them staring directly at each other, with a cold and frightening look. Just at this time, Hitaki Sakumo announced loudly, "The results are out, the first game of 4x2. Yusugakure and Hayakura vs Kurigakure and Mei Terumi." Upon hearing this result, the two people's eyes seemed to be spitting fire, and they stood up together. Taking advantage of his age, Yakura is taller than Mei Terumi, and his figure already has the charm of a woman. She glanced disdainfully at Terumi Mei's still youthful and flat figure, and as if she had won a victory, she walked into the field with her chest held high and her head held high. Terumi Mei's eyes suddenly burst out with anger, she clenched her fists tightly and chased after him. It's really unreasonable for women to get so angry before the fight even starts. Yi Feng patted his chest gently to soothe his frightened soul. Inexplicably, he felt that Hong and Nanoyu were more gentle. In the field, Terumi Mei and Yi Kang stood opposite each other, the coldness in their eyes intertwined, creating a suffocating field around them. Hitaki Sakumo stood between the two of them. Even though he was middle-aged, he couldn't help but feel moved when faced with this situation. After all, women are such creatures, sometimes they are terrifyingly abnormal, regardless of age. He asked with a slightly stiff face, "Are you all ready?" Snort. Yi Kang and Mei Terumi snorted at the same time, wishing they could take action immediately and kill the annoying woman in front of them. Hitaki Sakumo was a little embarrassed and hurriedly shouted, "Start." The next moment, he flew away from the battlefield with a slight haste and let out a sigh of relief on the viewing platform. On the court, Yi Kang and Terumi Mei were already fighting impatiently. The two fists and legs intertwined, and they started a fierce hand-to-hand fight. But they were obviously not carried away by unreasonable anger, and their fighting consciousness was very clear. When Yi Kang waved his fists and legs, the scorching fireball had already condensed beside him, and he attacked Terumi Mei in conjunction with the offensive. Through previous intelligence, Terumi Mei was very clear about Yi Kang's attack methods. Whether it was close combat or long-distance combat, it had considerable explosive power. To win this battle, it is absolutely impossible to adopt a time-consuming strategy like the one used to deal with Lois. Her only choice is to rely on her own hard power to decide the winner with Yi Kang in a short time. Although this is more difficult, her two escape techniques are not just decorations, they are not weaker than Yi Kang's burning escape at all. With this in mind, Terumi Mei seized an opportunity and used ninjutsu directly. Melt Escape Monster Melting Technique. In an instant, a ball of yellowish acid spurted out from her air, blasting towards Yi Kang with extremely corrosive properties. Naturally, Yi Kang would not underestimate the melting escape, and instantly summoned two scorching escape fireballs, blasting them towards the flying acid liquid. Sizzle. The surging fireball collided with the violent acid, erupting with terrifying power. Bursts of yellowish smoke rose into the air, as strong as a giant dragon, and flew into the sky. The melting acid is a liquid after all, and it will be evaporated quickly in the face of the burning heat. But Yi Kang's scorching release fireball was not invincible. After neutralizing the acid, only a tiny bit of the two fireballs remained. Yi Kang simply dispersed them and condensed two more. After the confrontation, both of them were breathing a little quickly, but it was obvious that Terumi Mei was struggling more. Now she is only 7 years old, and facing the 13-year-old Yi Kang, she is still physically unable to bear it. And her chakra capacity is obviously not as abundant as Yi Kang's. In an instant, Yi Kang's burning fireballs expanded to 4, surrounding her like a fairy surrounded by stars. She looked stern and maintained the 4 fireballs as if she had no burden and was very relaxed. Terumi Mei looked at this scene and gritted her teeth tightly, feeling quite depressed in her heart. If she had the same amount of chakra as Yi Kang, she would definitely not be at a disadvantage so quickly. After all, when her strength explodes, she can go head-to-head with Yi Kang. However, she had no intention of engaging in a sustained battle. After complaining a little, she immediately and quickly attacked Yi Kang. Yi Kang looked at her coldly, and 4 scorching fireballs flew out in an instant, blocking Terumi Mei's position quite cunningly. The scorching waves of air hit her face, and Terumi Mei, who had lived in the humid water country for a long time, felt quite uncomfortable, but she still gritted her teeth and tried to break through. But her strength is not as abnormal as Yi Feng, and she can easily get rid of the scorching fireball. After some attempts, under Yi Kang's precise control of the 4 burning fireballs, she could not get close to the opponent at all. Judging from the current distance, even if you use ninjutsu, you probably won't be able to reach Yi Kang. After realizing this, Terumi Mei couldn't help but feel a sense of powerlessness. If she wanted to break through the siege of the scorching fireball, she actually had a way, and that was to use ninjutsu again to extinguish it. But her chakra capacity is not rich to begin with, and if she uses it rashly just to break through the siege of the scorching fireball, the threat to Yi Kang will probably become smaller and smaller. Moreover, she had observed that Yi Kang's speed of condensing the scorching escape fireball was not slow, and he could successfully do so in about 3 seconds. If she really used ninjutsu to extinguish the scorching fireball in exchange for a chance to attack, then she only has 3 seconds to take action. After that, she will be surrounded and suppressed by the scorching fireball. Thinking of this, Terumi Mei felt even more powerless. After all, Yi Kang's strength is not weaker than hers at all. Even if there is no scorching fireball for the time being, it would be impossible to defeat her within 3 seconds. But Terumi Mei is also willing to give it a try. She knows very well that she is now in a dead situation. If she continues to be surrounded and suppressed by the burning fireball, she will definitely lose. After making this decision, her eyes suddenly changed and she firmly stopped running away. After quickly forming the seal, she shouted loudly, "Melt escape monster melting technique." Chakra passed quickly, and the next moment, a large amount of acid spurted out from her mouth, shooting at the 4 burning fireballs that were chasing her. Yi Kang curled up his lips and understood Terumi Mei's intention, but he did not forcefully change the direction of the scorching fireball and continued to blast it towards the opponent. Sizzle! An uncomfortable sound came out again, and 4 scorching fireballs collided with the acid. A large amount of smoke rose, much denser than last time. In an instant, a figure emerged from the smoke and ran towards Yi Kang quickly. Yi Kang stepped forward without fear, pulled out a kunai, and aimed directly at Terumi Mei's throat. The two clashed instantly. Terumi Mei dodged Yi Kang's attack and quickly formed a seal. Resolved escape resolved monster drinking liquid. Several acid cannonballs were instantly ejected from Terumi Mei's mouth, forcing Yakura to retreat, and even the location where she might stay was attacked in advance. Even so, Yi Kang's reaction was very quick, and his flexible body was like a civet cat, and he easily dodged it. The next moment, she rushed towards Terumi Mei, and from the rising smoke, 2 burning fireballs suddenly shot out. Terumi Mei looked at this scene in horror. She suddenly remembered that the acid of the monster melting technique only needed 2 burning fireballs to counter it. And there were 4 of them that were blasted with the acid just now. She couldn't know the specific situation in the smoke, but the bombardment of 2 burning fireballs was what she really needed to face. And right in front, Yi Kang was charging at her menacingly, with a smile of success on his lips. Terumi Mei felt a chill in her heart, but she still had no choice but to fight hard. Immediately, she clenched her fists and rushed towards Yi Kang. Boom! The scorching fireball roared behind him, while Yi Kang in front had already thrust out a sharp shuriken. Terumi Mei responded quickly and fought back. The 2 of them fought back and forth, but under the harassment of 2 scorching fireballs, Terumi Mei instantly fell into a disadvantage. Suddenly, Yi Kang caught an opportunity and quickly approached Terumi Mei, pressing the kunai tightly against her neck. I won. Yi Kang showed a cheerful smile, and an indescribable joy rose in his heart. But at this time, Terumi Mei, who was restrained, showed a smile, full of a strange feeling. Yi Kang frowned suddenly and stabbed the shuriken into the opponent's neck decisively. Boom! A burst of smoke suddenly rose, and Terumi Mei disappeared directly. Shadow clone. Yi Kang narrowed his eyes, adjusted his mentality in an instant, and became alert to his surroundings again. At this time, a surging smoke suddenly rushed towards her, trying to drown her. Facing this attack, Yi Kang's state of mind remained calm. She knew deeply that the offensive in front of her could not threaten her. The next moment, 4 scorching fireballs quickly appeared around her, spinning rapidly above her head. In an instant, a huge fireball condensed like the sun, carrying surging heat. The rotation of the burning escape fireball still did not stop, and the scorching heat wave spiraled out like a wave in all directions. Burning escape steam kill. Yi Kang looked at Terumi Mei, who was lurking in the corner, using the art of mist, and smiled again. Speaking of which, her burning release is quite restrained by Terumi Mei. After all, the 2 escape techniques possessed by the opponent, whether they are melting escape or boiling escape, all involve the participation of water attribute chakra. As long as the corresponding ninjutsu is used, there will be moisture in the product. And the burning escape can just wipe out all the water. In an instant, a surging heat wave swept across, wiping out all the moisture in the entire earth, and even the surface of the earth was sunken, like a falling meteorite. Chapter 71. Facing the surging heat wave sweeping across all directions, the acid fog instantly slowed down its progress as if facing a formidable enemy. But don't forget, it's just smoke after all. In just a moment, the acid mist was carried by the violently rotating heat wave and started to rotate together. Even Terumi Mei was very unwilling and desperately wanted to regain control of the acid mist. But her chakra amount was already insufficient, and she was unable to provide the acid mist with the strength to escape the heat wave. What's more, even if she could really control the acid mist and pounce on Yi Kang again. Is the acid mist still lethal at this moment? Don't forget, the heat of Jodan is so intense that it can evaporate the moisture in the surrounding environment in just an instant. The acid mist trapped in it has already faded and become increasingly invisible. In an instant, it had risen into the sky and wiped out all traces. At this moment, Terumi Mei completely lost her sense of the acid mist, and a strong sense of powerlessness enveloped her heart. Seeing her devastated look, Yi Kang looked extremely comfortable and couldn't stop smiling at all. She split apart the giant sun-like scorching fireball, controlled 4 fireballs, and instantly enveloped Terumi Mei. The surging heat enveloped her, making her very uncomfortable, but it was nothing compared to the loss and suffering inside her. When anyone with a discerning eye sees this scene, they already know where victory belongs, and Hatake Tsukumo is no exception. He suddenly appeared in the field and announced to everyone, "In this round, Sunagakur and Hayakura win." Upon hearing this result, there were bursts of wailing from the audience. "It's over, it's over. Who can stop Sunagakur? It would be so embarrassing if Sunagakur really wins first place. Oh, there are only Uchiha brats left. I'd better go home and wash up and sleep." While lamenting, the 3rd cage on the high platform was extremely excited. He had already seen the first place waving towards Sunagakur. At the same time, he also gained endless confidence in the foundation of Sunagakur village. Given time, they and Sunagakur will give birth to 2 super strong men, and Yi Kang can run unimpeded on the battlefield with the help of his burning release. And Sayuno, with her superb puppet master skills and her emotionless personality, will definitely be the most outstanding killing machine in Anbu. With this combination, Sunagakur has a promising future. Maybe, we can also plan a war and seize all the fertile land of the Fire Country. The 3rd cage had a look on his face as he fantasized excitedly, while Goju Yagura's face was very calm, as if the loser was not Kurigakure. As for Onoki, his face was still gloomy. For him, no matter which ninja village won, he would not be happy. Sarutobi Hiruzen was sitting on the main seat, and the old god was smoking a pipe on the ground. In fact, he was not worried at all about the seemingly bad situation at the moment. After all, this is his village, and he can know everything that happens. For example, outside Uchiha's clan, Yi Feng and Yi Kang briefly fought against each other. Yi Feng won the victory in a crushing manner, and seemed to have a strength close to that of a Junin. The Anbu who was monitoring it naturally reported the matter and informed him. Although he had not seen it with his own eyes, Sarutobi Hiruzen had no doubts about this. He is very aware of how terrifying the talent of the Uchiha clan is. Since the founding of the village, he has seen countless Uchiha geniuses. As for Uchiha Yi Feng, his talent is probably even more outstanding than the one who once had to look up to him. When he was only 6 years old, he opened the 3 Magatama Sharingan eyes. This monster-like talent really cannot be viewed with common sense. If he hadn't been so open-minded and had already achieved his life pursuit, Sarutobi Hiruzen would be a little jealous. But what he is thinking more about now is how to win over Uchiha Yifeng and let him become the bridge of communication between the village and Uchiha. This kind of monster that cannot be described by common sense must stand firmly on the side of the village. Otherwise, it would be too dangerous if the selfish Uchiha gang instilled the concept of family supremacy. Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't want a super powerful ninja who might rebel one day to appear in the village. Fortunately, Uchiha Yifeng is an illegitimate son, and it has been less than a year since he returned to the family, so the concept of the family may not have been established yet. This gave Hiruzen Sarutobi the opportunity to operate, and corresponding ideas gradually came into his mind. At this time, Hitaki Sakumo stood in the field and announced loudly, "This match is between Konoha and Uchiha Yifeng vs Sunagaku and Sayuno." Yifeng and Sayuno, who had known this for a long time, did not delay and walked into the field in an instant. Looking at the two of them, Hitaki Sakumo did not speak immediately, but waited for Sayuno to summon the puppets used in battle. Boom! Smoke rose, and a puppet that was exactly the same as before appeared in front of Sayuno. Of course, it might be the same one. The eagle-like head has a sharp beak, the slender limbs hide blades, and the inside of the body and every joint are almost hidden with poison-laced hidden weapons. This is the information Yifeng got from watching the last battle, but even if he didn't know this, he didn't think he would lose. After all, the huge gap in strength is enough to smooth out any information asymmetry. "Are you ready?" Hitaki Sakumo asked. Yifeng took out the blade and replied softly, "Of course." Seeing this, Hitaki Sakumo stepped away immediately, already understanding that Sayuno's silence meant she was ready. A chilling atmosphere suddenly filled the venue, and Yifeng rushed out without hesitation, activating the Sharingan. A pair of dark eyes were revealed under the black robe. Sayuno looked at the rushing Yifeng and quickly danced her fingers. In an instant, the eagle puppet stepped forward and stood in front of Yifeng. But Kakashi will be blocked by it, but Yifeng may not. The tip of his toes clicked quickly on the ground, Yifeng's figure kept changing, and he took the puppet on a circuitous route. But after figuring out the specific speed of the puppet, Yifeng suddenly burst out and quickly ran behind it. Sayuno's dark eyes couldn't help but widen. Just when she was about to save her, Yifeng's figure had already appeared beside her. Cut with one knife, carrying strong wind. Wow! The short sword suddenly stopped in front of Sayuno's neck, and the distance between the two was almost impossible to detect. The sharp sword wind instantly dispersed, lifting Sayuno's hood, revealing her pale face. Yifeng noticed that her eyes were not actually black. In the sunlight, she could clearly see a hint of dark red, just like delicious wine. But as long as you avoid the sun and don't look carefully, you can only see deep black. And he also noticed that she was not really emotionless. At least at this moment, Yifeng saw horror in her eyes. Of course, apart from Sayuno, the audience present were also horrified, with eyes full of disbelief. At this time, Hitaki Sakumo appeared on the scene and announced loudly, "Konoha Uchiha Yifengsheng." Having said this, he took a deep look at Yifeng, feeling surprised in his heart. Through Kakashi, he had long known that Uchiha had such a genius, whose strength and talent were even better than Kakashi's. Kakashi has always regarded him as the target of his pursuit. As a father, Hitaki Sakumo was quite pleased with this. He had always been very worried that Kakashi would become arrogant because of his excellent talent. But since Yifeng appeared, Kakashi put away all his arrogance and practiced even harder than before. For Kakashi's change, Hitaki Sakumo was actually very grateful to Yifeng. But when I saw him today, even though he had a genius son, I couldn't help praising Yifeng for being such a monster. He could feel that when Yifeng accelerated past the puppet at the end, he had already exploded with a speed comparable to that of a Junin. With this kind of talent, Kakashi might not even be able to match him. For a moment, he felt a mixture of sadness and joy in his heart. At the same time, he felt sad for Kakashi, but at the same time he was happy that the village could have such a monster genius. After a moment of silence, the audience suddenly cheered and waved their arms excitedly. Wow, how did this Uchiha brat win so quickly? Is it possible that he is particularly strong, but we just didn't see it? Is it really strong? It seems that he has never used any powerful ninjutsu. So what? I suddenly feel that he can defeat that little girl from Sunagaku. Okay, I think so too. At this moment, loud cheers and shouts erupted from the audience, but Yifeng didn't care at all. He put away his dagger and waited in the field. Next, is the final showdown. He didn't want to waste time here anymore. But what he didn't expect was that a disembodied voice suddenly came from beside him. You are strong. Yi Feng turned around and saw Sayuno quietly packing up the puppets, without the slightest hint of discouragement on her face. You're not bad either, he said flatteringly, but Sayuno obviously knew it was a compliment and shook her head and said, no, I'm far from it. When you were cleaning up everyone in the Death Forest, I kept an eye on you. I know very well how strong you are. Yi Feng was slightly surprised, but this also confirmed his previous thoughts. Sayuno was indeed staring at him. But your ability to monitor people is really good. Thank you. Sayuno looked at him indifferently. Then, she put on her hood again, and her whole person once again exuded an aura that kept strangers away from her. Yi Feng was in a daze for a moment, feeling that Sayuno seemed to have changed into a different person, with an extremely weird temperament. However, he didn't care too much and stood in the field, waiting for the decisive battle to come. Looking at Sayuno's leaving figure, the third cage did not feel angry. After all, the Yi Feng she was fighting was a genius boy from Konoha and a peerless genius of the Uchiha clan. Losing is normal, but this is also because Sunagaku still has the possibility of getting first place. And in the heart of the third Fengyiang, Yi Kang is much stronger than Yi Feng. After all, Burning Escape is very comprehensive, and has powerful explosive power whether it is a long-range attack or a melee attack. In the battle with Yi Kang, if you make the slightest mistake, you may die directly. Even if you don't die, you will still be disabled. At this time, Hitaki Tsukumo in the field glanced at Yi Feng and shouted to the audience, the next game will be the last game. Konoha Uchiha Yefeng vs Sunagaku Hagakura. As soon as these words came out, the audience immediately became excited. They believe that this will definitely be the most exciting game of all. After all, the two people who can stay until the end will definitely not be inferior in strength. If they want to decide the winner, they will definitely use all their trump cards. At this moment, all the audience cheered for Yi Feng. Uchiha brat, come on. You must not let Sunagaku take away the first place. Come on, you can definitely do it. Yi Feng didn't care at all about these words. He looked at Yi Kang who was approaching and said with a smile, do we still need to fight? Of course it's necessary. Yi Kang gritted his teeth and said firmly. It seems that you were very unconvinced by last time. Yi Kang's eyes flashed. To be honest, she was very convinced of Yi Feng's strength and even knew that she could not defeat him. But as a genius, she also has her own pride, and she cannot do something like surrender without a fight. What's more, as long as there is a 1% chance of victory, it is worth her to seize it at all costs. Hitaki Tsukumo looked at the two familiar people with vague doubts, but without any intention of asking, he asked, are you ready? All right, the two of them agreed and took a fighting stance. Then start. Hitaki Tsukumo left in an instant and returned to the viewing area. At the same moment, Yi Kang directly condensed 4 scorching escape fireballs, covering his side. Yi Feng watched quietly, held the short knife in his hand, and walked out silently. Call out. Yi Feng's figure was like a sharp arrow, shooting quickly in front of Yi Kang, and the blade danced out. Yi Kang, who was well aware of the huge gap in strength, was well prepared and hurriedly hid back while controlling the burning release fireball to blast towards the opponent. Yi Feng chased Yi Kang nonchalantly, and did not quickly withdraw until the burning fireball was about to approach him. After a series of dodges, the burning release fireball was quickly thrown away by him and attacked Yi Kang again. The blade fell like a violent storm, and the shining light of the blade was like a meteor shower, extremely dazzling. Yi Kang struggled to avoid it, feeling quite anxious about the situation at this moment. She knew that her escape fireball couldn't keep up with Yi Feng's speed, so she couldn't threaten him. And her own fighting ability is somewhat difficult to withstand in front of Yi Feng, who is comparable to a Junin. The rhythm of the entire battle fell into Yi Feng's control from the beginning. How on earth did you practice? Why are you so strong at the age of 6? Yi Kang angrily pushed Yi Feng back, and 4 scorching escape fireballs suddenly swarmed up. Yi Feng ran away again, and after taking the burning release fireball in a circle, he quickly approached Yi Kang. Do you understand talent? You can become so strong just by practicing. Go to hell. Yi Kang became even more angry, even though she had scorching escape and her talent was very good. But her current strength is all due to her own efforts, and she has never slacked off in her practice almost every day. No matter how Yi Feng said this, it sounded like he was trying to attract hatred. She quickly dodged the blade swung by Yi Feng and quickly retreated to the rear. The 4 scorching fireballs also quickly receded and enveloped her surroundings. Yi Feng looked at this scene, and the scene of Fengwo City suddenly flashed through his mind, feeling very familiar. It seems that you are ready to give it a try. Yi Feng curled his lips, anticipating the next situation. As expected, Yi Kang was seen controlling 4 scorching fireballs, spinning rapidly above his head. Burning escape steam kill. Yi Feng watched calmly, but did not want to use his sword skills like Fengwo City did. After all, he didn't use the power of ghosts and gods at this moment. In the fight with Zhou Dun, something unexpected might happen. Of course, he was more worried about whether Yi Kang would be accidentally killed because of this accident. In that case, the joke will be too big. He might be able to successfully defeat the Third Ninja War and advance the war by several years. Thinking of this, Yi Feng vaguely had another option in his mind. Call. The surging heat wave echoed everywhere as the huge sun-like scorching fireball appeared, even curling Yi Feng's hair. Without hesitation, he put the dagger into its sheath and began to form seals with both hands. And Yi Kang obviously knew that a mere steaming kill could not threaten Yi Feng, so he immediately controlled the huge fireball and injected it with surging chakra. In an instant, the shocking power echoed in the field, causing the audience to marvel again and again. No way, are you going to use your trump card so soon? Just use it, as long as it's wonderful. It's moving. The fireball is beginning to deform. An exclamation came out, and all the audience's eyes were focused on the huge burning fireball. Under the control of Yi Kang, the burning release fireball gradually lengthened its body and became quite slender. At this time, blue light suddenly appeared on Yi Feng's hand, and the sound of birds chirping wildly arose. That's right, what he used was Kakashi's own ninjutsu, Chidori. For a moment, surging thunder light flickered around Yi Feng, drowning out all the light and making it a little dark. And above Yi Kang's head, the slender burning fireball gradually became ferocious, revealing terrifying claws and head. It clearly looks like a ferocious giant dragon. Endless heat waves swept across its body, like the incarnation of the sun, trying to evaporate all moisture. Viewed from a high altitude, the entire battlefield seems to be divided, with one side bright and the other side dark and sharp. Light and darkness are clearly presented to everyone at this moment. Everyone watched with bated breath, feeling surprised and delighted at the collision that was about to happen. In an instant, the scorching fire dragon took shape instantly, its huge body carrying surging heat waves, and roared towards Yi Feng. Facing this scene, Yi Feng smiled softly and faced the dragon without fear. After running a few steps forward, he jumped up instantly, and the bright light of the Chidori instantly obscured his figure. But even so, he still looked incomparably small in front of the entire burning escape dragon, and looked like he would break into pieces at a touch. But Yi Kang didn't think so. She injected all her chakra into the giant dragon and attacked the opponent with the most powerful power. In an instant, Yi Feng and the giant dragon collided hard, erupting with a shocking momentum. Light and darkness quickly exploded in the center, flooding the entire battlefield. The air waves suddenly spread, and the whole place trembled, as if the sky was falling apart. Even the audience on the sidelines felt the noisy air waves at this moment, mixed with the disturbing temperature. Within the field of vision, the place where the collision occurred was shrouded in light and darkness. Only the giant dragon's thick body and the small thunder echoing behind Yi Feng could be seen. But suddenly, a flash of lightning pierced the sky, like a sharp blade, violently cutting open the body of the scorching escape dragon. Before everyone could react, Yi Feng's figure flashed suddenly, shuttled through the collapsing flames, and rushed towards Yi Kang. Yi Kang himself did not expect that this would be the case, that the scorching escape dragon would collapse so quickly. Even at this moment, she has not recovered from the feeling just now. Suddenly, a tingling feeling surged into his skin, and a figure appeared in front of Yi Kang's eyes. But before she had time to react, she was violently pushed to the ground, and a sense of excitement swept through her body. Dust and smoke rose up, covering the two figures. Ahem, what a failure! Yi Feng coughed a few times, driving away the smoke and dust from his mouth and nose, and his left hand was sinking into the earth at this moment, unable to move. Just recalling the scene just now made him break into a cold sweat. From the original work, he learned that it was very difficult to control Chidori, and it was difficult to capture the target's position when moving at high speed. But the Sharingan can make up for this flaw, making the Chidori a powerful one-hit kill. This is why Yi Feng dared to use Chidori in actual combat without trying it. But what he didn't expect was that, stimulated by Chidori, his speed was really too fast. And when he was fighting against the burning escape dragon, he used a plug-in and defeated it instantly without slowing down at all. You know, he had already copied Yi Kang's burning escape when he was in Fengwo City. Relying on this ability, he directly snatched Yi Kang's control over the burning escape dragon during the fight. Although he definitely couldn't grab it for a while, his chakra interfered with the cohesion of the scorching dragon, causing its power to drop sharply, and it was easily destroyed by Chidori. After that, Yi Feng took Chidori and stabbed Yi Kang quickly. Originally, when he thought about it, he could control the Chidori excellently and stop it accurately next to Yi Kang's neck. But who would have thought that he couldn't even control the skyrocketing speed? When he came to Yi Kang, he couldn't stop at all and bumped into him hard. If he hadn't quickly moved Chidori away, with his extremely immature control, Yi Kang would have died long ago. However, the ending at this moment was also quite embarrassing. His left hand was deeply sunk into the ground, making it difficult to pull it out. But after he tried to pull it out a few times, he suddenly found that Yi Kang was glaring at him angrily, his teeth clenching loudly. There was innocence in Yi Feng's eyes, but in an instant, a cold sweat ran down his back. Wait, why is this angle a bit weird? Yi Feng was suddenly startled. He looked at Yi Kang below him and seemed to understand something. He moved his butt, and the warm and soft touch made him realize that he guessed correctly. He really lay on Yi Kang's body, and his butt was sitting on Yi Kang's lower abdomen. Looking at Yi Kang from this angle, it even looks a little fragrant. After all, her figure already has the charm of a woman, and the curves of her peaks and ridges are perfect. You, still, no, get off, come. Yi Kang gritted her teeth tightly. If her body hadn't been paralyzed by Chidori's thunder, she would have wanted to hit Yi Feng to death with her knee. But facing her request, Yi Feng could only smile helplessly. I can't do it. At this moment, Yi Feng's left arm was firmly stuck in the ground, and the entire joint could not even rotate. The only thing he could do was to raise his buttocks so as not to come into contact with Yi Kang's body. But this posture still looks weird. Anger brewed in Yi Kang's eyes. If possible, she really wanted to cut Yi Feng into pieces with 1,000 knives. Yi Feng was also a little embarrassed, so he quickly took out his kunai and dug at the ground next to his left arm. Seeing this scene, although Yi Kang was unhappy, he didn't say anything else. Fortunately, at this moment, the flying dust and smoke obscured the figures of the two people, and the outside world knew nothing about the situation. But Yi Kang still couldn't help but urge, hurry up. The smoke will dissipate soon. I know. Yi Feng dug the soil quickly and gradually felt the looseness of the earth. After a few breaths passed, the dust and smoke gradually dissipated, and the blurry shadows within it could be seen. Yi Kang stared at Yi Feng eagerly, trying hard to move his paralyzed body, trying to change the current embarrassing situation. But the Chidori's lethality is top-notch, so you can imagine how powerful its thunder is. Even though she struggled hard, her limbs seemed paralyzed and she couldn't move at all. Faced with this situation, Yi Kang urged again. She didn't want hundreds of viewers to see this scene. Hurry up. Okay, come out. As soon as Yi Feng finished speaking, his whole arm was suddenly pulled out of the ground, bringing up bursts of mud. Seeing Yi Kang's anxious look, he had no intention of teasing him and quickly stood up. Looking through the gradually thinning smoke, one could only see a shadow standing up slowly, looking down at another person from a high position. The audience all realized that this meant that the result of the final battle had been born. They looked forward to it eagerly, wishing they could use a fan to blow away the dust and smoke in the field. Even the third-generation Cage, who held a high position, squinted his eyes at this moment, hoping that the fantasy would become reality. The dust and smoke became thinner and thinner, and completely dissipated with the arrival of a gust of breeze, revealing the appearance of the field. Yi Feng's thin figure was seen standing in the field, looking down at Yi Kang from a high position. Seeing this scene, all the audience stood up excitedly and cheered heartily. Without anyone's explanation, they could clearly see that Uchiha Yi Feng had won. After all, Yi Kang was lying motionless on the ground at this moment, obviously losing his fighting ability. The one standing as the winner. The third cage's face flashed with gloom, but he quickly adjusted and returned to calm. I thought too much after all, but the result is pretty good. The third cage glanced at Onoki vaguely, and his mood suddenly became brighter. At this time, Hitaki Tsukumo appeared on the field and announced loudly, the final winner is Uchiha Yi Feng. Suddenly, the cheers became even more enthusiastic. You Uchiha brat, you're awesome. It's worth my support from the beginning. You can pull him down. You must have been the first one to despair just now. I heard that Uchiha are quite handsome, but I wonder what he looks like. I don't know what he looks like, but you look quite ugly. Yi Feng looked at the cheers of the audience with a very indifferent expression. At this time, Yi Kang had faintly recovered his strength and was slowly getting up from the ground. Suddenly, she lost her strength, her legs could no longer support her body, and she fell to the ground. But just as she fell to the ground and resentment arose in her heart, a young figure helped her up. How could Yi Kang not know who he was and stubbornly shouted, "Let me go. Don't hold on, why bother?" Yi Feng supported her with a gentle tone. Yi Kang's heart trembled slightly, she had never seen such a gentle Yi Feng. Every time the two met in the past, it was like a confrontation, and no one was the same as the other. The tenderness at this moment was something I had never felt before. Seeing that Yi Kang no longer struggled, Yi Feng supported her and walked to the eaves of the rest area. The two sat there, waiting for the final verdict to be announced. On the high platform, the four cages were already discussing which ninjas could be promoted to Chunin. At this moment, the entire venue was no longer so lively. After the audience vented their passion, they all whispered about the final outcome. Yi Kang leaned against the hard wall, looked at the devastated sight, and suddenly felt a sense of silence. Her body unconsciously leaned towards Yi Feng, as if relying on him, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Yi Feng didn't feel anything. He raised his head and looked at the sky, waiting for the verdict to be announced. After just half a minute, Hitaki Tsukumo got the result and came to the field. After receiving the signal, Terumi Mei and others in the rest area walked into the field and stood in the center. Yi Feng stood up and stretched out his hand to Yi Kang. "Let's go, it's almost over." The silence disappeared in an instant, and Yi Kang suddenly felt empty in his heart, feeling a little aggrieved for no reason. She didn't understand what was wrong with her, but it didn't stop her from becoming gloomy. She slapped Yi Feng's palm away, her body had recovered its ability to move, and she walked towards the center with a slightly bored look. Yi Feng rubbed his palms. Although he was a little confused, he had no intention of getting the answer. At this moment, he just wanted to go back quickly and meet someone. Looking at the 7 young people standing in the field, all the audience fell silent, waiting for the results to be announced. Hitaki Tsukumo glanced around, although Kakashi was still unconscious due to poisoning. But whether he participates or not will not affect the outcome about him. Hitaki Tsukumo announced loudly, "After the discussion of the 4 shadows, there are ninjas who will be promoted to Chunin in this Chunin exam. All staff." As soon as these words came out, the audience was immediately surprised. They all advanced. This is probably the first time in history, right? However, this time the Chunin exam unites the 4 major ninja villages. If they all advance, each village's face can be saved to the greatest extent. Otherwise, if some are eliminated, some ninja villages may be disgraced and become angry. It is better to do less things that are not conducive to peace. After thinking about it for a moment, most people understood the meaning. Although they don't understand the battle between ninjas, they can still understand this kind of psychological game. But at this moment, the reaction of the 7 people present was not even as strong as that of the audience. The only one who was slightly excited was Ching, who was at the bottom of the list. Others don't particularly care about this, and are even thinking about other things. After the announcement, the entire Chunin examination ended here. Under the organization of the staff, all the audience left the venue one after another, gathering in small groups to reflect on the entire assessment. The ninjas from each village have returned to their respective cages command, waiting to return to their residences together. Yi Feng did not leave immediately. He waited in the corner and saw the shadows of each village leaving, and then walked towards Sarutobi Hinezen. Seeing Yi Feng, Sarutobi Hinezen smiled with relief and asked kindly, Yi Feng, you really brought glory to the village this time. Good done. Yi Feng scratched his head with a smile and said shyly, Master Naruto, I successfully won the first place, I don't know. Oh, I'm ready for this matter. Sarutobi Hinashin waved his hand, and the secretary beside him hurriedly took out a document and handed it to Yi Feng. Yi Feng took it and opened it and saw that it was a land use license. With it, Yi Feng can help Nanoyu build an orphanage. There is almost no free place in the center of the village, so the location of this land is a bit off. Sarutobi Hiruzen said with a little guilt. In this matter, he had absolutely no intention of making things difficult for Yi Feng, and even was willing to use the best land to win him over. But after nearly 40 years of development, the area near the center has long been filled with buildings. To meet the needs of building an orphanage, this slightly remote land is already the best. Yi Feng smiled with satisfaction. Sir Naruto doesn't have to do this land is pretty good. Anyway, it's an orphanage, and a quieter environment is better. Just understand. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled with relief. He was really afraid that Yi Feng would be dissatisfied. However, through this incident, he became more determined to win over Yi Feng. After all, Uchiha is not so easy to talk to, and there is a smile on his face at any time. Looking at Yi Feng's appearance, in a trance, Sarutobi Hiruzen even thought he had seen his former friend, Uchiha Mitsuki. Yi Feng keenly captured a trace of remembrance flashing in Sarutobi Hikari's eyes, and understood his inner thoughts. But he didn't think too much, and took the certificate and waved to Sarutobi Hinaku, Sir Naruto, I'll go back first. Sarutobi Hinata came back to her senses and waved her hand with a smile. Go back, I believe many people are waiting for you to celebrate. Goodbye Naruto, Yi Feng shouted, ran out of the venue quickly and rushed towards the Uchiha clan. When we returned to the tribe, the sun had already set in the west and shone with a bright red light. Before he could enter the tribe, Yi Feng saw two figures standing at the door waiting. Brother Fuyu, Shishui, Yi Feng shouted and ran to them quickly. When Zishui saw him, he jumped up excitedly. Brother Yi Feng, congratulations on winning the first place. Ha ha ha, you can do it in the future too. Yi Feng scratched his head, still feeling a little excited. However, his joy was more because he obtained the land use certificate for building an orphanage. Fu Gao looked at him and said with a smile, it's done very well. The patriarch asked me to take him to praise you well. Then thank you, the clan leader. Yi Feng chuckled and walked into the clan territory. While chatting, the three of them slowly walked to Yi Feng's residence. From a distance, I saw a beautiful figure standing in front of the door, casting a look. Fuyu glanced at Yi Feng with a little meaningful look, then took Zishui and turned into the street next to him. Very sensible. Yi Feng looked at the figures of the two leaving and couldn't help but chuckled. The next moment, he slowly walked to Nanoyu and said softly, I'm back. Congratulations, you've successfully won the first place. Nanoyu's smile was extremely gentle, just like the spring breeze in June, warming his heart. Yi Feng chuckled and took out the certificate in his arms. Congratulations, too, for becoming the first director of Konoha Orphanage. Seeing the certificate, Nanoyu's face suddenly changed, and he looked full of surprise. This, so fast. Yi Feng was actually surprised at first, but after thinking about fighting with Yi Kang in front of the clan, he understood the mystery. Sarutobi Hinazawa must have obtained the battle information from Anbu, thus gaining a rough grasp of his strength. Although it may not necessarily reach the level of the upper ninja, it must be a super strong existence in the middle ninja. After all, at that time, he easily subdued Yi Kang. I believe that from that day on, Sarutobi Hinata had expected the final result and was ready to fulfill its promise in advance. Yi Feng couldn't help but smile and said, this is what the third generation has prepared in advance. Prepare in advance. He is so sure you can get the first place. Of course, my talent and strength are well known. Nanoyu couldn't help rolling her eyes. She knew Yi Feng's nature well and would never believe this sentence. After all, he has many secrets and is quite low-key in daily life. How could it be known to everyone? However, if Sarutobi Hiruzen knew, it would be reasonable. After all, it is a shadow of a village, so it is not difficult to know something. Yi Feng smiled and put the certificate in Nanoyu's hand and slowly walked into the house. But shortly after he walked in, he walked out with a depressed look on his face. I said, you didn't cook. Nanoyu looked at the certificate with an excited look. waved his hand and said, "Today is a great day, of course I have to go out to eat." Yi Feng was a little silent, but on such a day worth celebrating, he should really have a meal outside. "Then let's go quickly, I'm hungry." Hearing Yi Feng's urging, Nanoyu put away the certificate and turned his head and walked into the house. "Wait, I'll take the certificate." Yi Feng had no choice but to stand outside the door and wait silently. After a while, Nanoyu walked out, but the certificate was still in his hand. "You are teasing me." Yi Feng raised his eyebrows and wanted to die a little. "I want to bring such an expensive thing with me." Nanoyu smiled awkwardly. Then, she stuffed the certificate into her arms and hugged her hands very dearly. "Aren't you telling others that you have treasures on you?" Yi Feng glanced at her and couldn't help but complain. But he really couldn't wait any longer, so he quickly pulled her palm and walked towards the outside world. "What are you doing?" Nanoyu subconsciously struggled, but without exerting force, Yi Feng held his palm tightly. She also realized that there were indeed some problems with her behavior, so she quickly adjusted and returned to her calm appearance. However, even though she calmed down her inner excitement, she did not shake Yi Feng's palm away and let him pull it. In this way, the two of them held their hands tightly and walked slowly towards the exit of the clan. But just as they passed by Sakura Avenue, the two saw a petite figure running into the gate of the tribe from afar. The person who came was the Sunset. The moment he saw her, Nanoyu's eyes became a little darker, and he hurriedly shook Yi Feng's palm away. Yi Feng took a deep look at her and wanted to hold her hand again, but in the end he failed to reach out. Shirahong trotted over, looked at Yi Fengjiao and said with a smile, "Brother Yi Feng, you are so awesome. I've watched all your games, and the opponent is no match at all. Congratulations, you have become a chunin." At the end of the sentence, Yuri Hong suddenly stood up on her tiptoes and kissed Yi Feng on the cheek. After that, she glanced at Nanoyu, as if she was declaring her sovereignty. But how could Nanoyu argue with a little girl? Even though he was dissatisfied in his heart, he still had a smile on his face. Yi Feng smiled softly, and then said to Yuri Hong, "We are going to go out to celebrate, let's go together." "Okay, but can't it be just the two of us?" Yuri Hong smiled sweetly, unabashedly showing her rejection of no. When he heard this, Nanoyu's expression immediately changed. She has never denied the fact that she likes Yi Feng. Although he is very young, he has a mature charm about him that is quite fascinating. And the reason why she no longer gets entangled with Yi Feng is just that she hates his flirtatiousness. But no matter what you say, it doesn't mean that she is afraid. If there really was a competition, how could a yellow-haired girl who hadn't even started growing yet be able to defeat her? But at this moment, after receiving repeated demonstrations from the other party, her anger naturally increased, and an idea even popped up in her mind. "Since Yi Feng also likes you, I might as well find a way to force you away. In this case, he only belongs to me. Anyway, you have no idea of having a peaceful talk." Thinking like this, Nanoyu slowly showed a charming smile and took Yi Feng directly into his arms. With Yi Feng's height, his head was just buried in the two peaks, and he was instantly enveloped by the soft touch. "Little brother, what do you want her to do when I'm with you?" Nanoyu's words were lazy and intellectual, with warm wind echoing in Yi Feng's ears, giving him a feeling of excitement. Yi Feng's mind suddenly swayed, and he couldn't help but feel intoxicated after not tasting the fragrance of a woman for a long time. But there was a fiery look behind him instantly, as if he wanted to kill someone. He quickly woke up and realized that the situation at this moment was very bad, so he forcibly broke away from the embrace. For a moment, Yuri Hong and Nanoyu looked at each other, making no secret of their hostility to each other. Yi Feng looked at this scene helplessly, feeling powerless in his heart. This was the first time in his life that he had experienced this kind of thing, and he really didn't know how to deal with it. It was quite easy for those big bosses who traveled through time to open harems, but why was it so difficult to get here? Handsome face, powerful strength, elusive secrets, I have them all. Yi Feng thought doubtfully, feeling annoyance gradually rising in his heart, and he didn't want to think about it anymore. "Both of you, don't go." Yi Feng said something coldly, then stepped out and left the clan alone. "Hey!" Yuri Hong and Nanoyu gave up looking at each other for an instant and turned their attention to Yi Feng. But he was really annoyed, not just pretending, and walked away a few meters in the blink of an eye. The two of them did not hesitate, but hurriedly chased after him, walking on Yifeng's side, one on the left and the other on the right. Brother Yifeng, don't be angry. Yuri Hong pulled Yifeng's left arm and begged softly. Nanoyu, who was on the right, leaned his head and said in his ear very charmingly, "You are so angry, do you want someone to compensate you?" One on the left and one on the right, one is pure and cute, the other is extremely charming. The combination of the two really has a unique charm. Even though Yifeng had visited flowers in his previous life, it was a bit difficult to control himself at this moment. But he knew deeply that he must not compromise so easily, he must show his momentum and shock them hard. Otherwise, his journey to the harem will be extremely difficult. With a cold face, he was unmoved by the performance of the two people and said indifferently, "Do you all know that you were wrong? It was wrong, wrong, everyone should celebrate together." Yuhi Hong quickly admitted her mistake, her soft and cute look was very pitiful. Nanoyu was also very knowledgeable, and his charming voice sounded in Yifeng's ears again. "I know I was wrong, so I will make it up to you tonight. I have to say that Nono's charm is indeed greater than Yuhi Kurenai's. But this is a matter of age, not that Kurenai Yuhi is not as good looking as Nono. For now, Nanoyu's female charm is too full. What's more, as a spy, she has excellent seduction skills and can easily arouse desires with just a few moves." Although he knew that Nanoyu was just talking about it and could never fulfill it, Yifeng still couldn't help but think about it and get excited. During the time they lived together, he had already deeply felt how outstanding Nanoyu's figure was. And her appearance is also first-rate beauty, whether pure or charming, she has an irresistible charm. As a normal man, Yifeng would naturally have thoughts and couldn't help but fall for it. After the two admitted their mistake, Yifeng's expression softened and was no longer so cold. The two of them also had a tacit understanding and didn't mention it again. They surrounded Yifeng on the left and right and walked into the street with him. As soon as they entered the downtown area, the three of them clearly felt that the flow of people was denser than usual. But after thinking about it for a moment, they could understand the reason. You know, in today's Chunin exam, Konoha's ninja won first place. For something so worthy of celebration, it is natural to have a good time. Although the people are not actual participants, how can we draw a clear line between them and them in matters related to the honor of the village? All villagers who have a sense of belonging to Konoha are undoubtedly happy today. Celebrating it is simply a must. Looking at this happy scene, Yifeng slowly smiled and started chatting and laughing with Yuhibei no. After a while, they came to the barbecue restaurant they often frequented and prepared to celebrate here. When they came to the door, the three of them were about to go in, but Yifeng suddenly saw a figure and showed an inexplicable smile. He glanced at the two people next to him and couldn't help but laugh secretly in his heart. Since you two are going to make a fuss, you might as well make it more lively. Thinking of this, Yifeng immediately waved his hand to the figure in front of him. Yi Kang, who was walking among the crowd, looked indifferent. When he suddenly heard his name, he was obviously stunned for a few seconds, and then he started looking for it. Here it is, Yifeng shouted again, finally letting Yi Kang see him. Yi Kang looked at him in surprise and walked over slowly. Is something wrong? Let's celebrate together, shall we? Yifeng pointed to the barbecue restaurant next to him and invited him warmly. For a moment, the atmosphere around Yifeng became extremely strange. Yuhi Hong and Nanoyu looked at each other, and they both saw doubts in each other's eyes. Obviously, they don't understand why the relationship between Yifeng and Yi Kang is so close, as if they are old friends. For Kurenai Yuhi, she only knew that Yi Kang was from Sunagaku and had fought against Yifeng in the Chunin exam. But Nanoyu didn't know more. The last time she saw Yi Kang was in Fengwo City. But at that time, both of them were extremely ruthless in their attacks, and they were all rushing to kill each other. After that, they didn't seem to have any interactions, right? Yi Kang didn't notice their doubts. At this moment, she was looking at Yifeng with a complicated look. For some reason, the moment she found out that it was Yifeng calling her, inexplicable joy suddenly surged from her heart. And he actually invited himself to celebrate together, which was really incredible. You know, the hatred between Konoha and Sunagaku is very deep. When Yi Kang just walked around, he felt a lot of cold looks. But even so, Yifeng still dared to invite her, which was really audacious. However, in addition to the deep trembling in Yi Kang's heart, there was also an inexplicable sweetness that wrapped his soul warmly. Although she hesitated in her heart, she didn't know where the courage came from, so she agreed immediately. Okay, but in an instant, Yi Kang felt two waves of vague hostility envelope him. Only then did she notice that there were two women standing next to Yi Feng, both of whom had good looks. A doll as exquisite as a porcelain doll that makes people fall in love with it. The other person is charming yet gentle, and the two completely opposite temperaments are perfectly blended together. Seeing them, Yi Kang suddenly felt annoyed and his face became a little gloomy. She suddenly regretted agreeing to Yi Feng. Yi Feng didn't notice her change. He was glancing at the two people behind him, feeling happy in his heart. Aren't you just jealous? I'll let you eat as much as you want. Ha ha ha. He stepped forward comfortably, and when he just walked into the store, he unexpectedly saw a familiar figure again. I saw Ao and Mei Terumi sitting at a dining table, looking at the menu and preparing to order. Yi Feng's eyes lit up when he saw them, and he slowly walked over with everyone. He sat directly opposite the two of them and said, "We are really destined, let's eat together." The two of them raised their heads in surprise and showed different expressions after discovering that it was Uchiha Yi Feng. Qing looked at him slightly warily, obviously he attached great importance to the boundaries of the village. Terumi Mei didn't show any warning. The moment she saw Yi Feng, she was faintly excited. But Qing refused directly. "We belong to different villages, so I'm afraid it wouldn't be good to eat together." "What's wrong with this? Who stipulates that people from different villages can't eat together? And we have all successfully become chunin, why not celebrate together?" Yi Feng calmly took the menu and asked the boss to order barbecue. Qing looked at this scene angrily, but on Konoha's territory, he did not dare to cause trouble. What's more, the Yi Feng in front of him is not someone he can provoke. If a good man doesn't suffer the immediate consequences, I will bear with him. Qing gritted his teeth and said to Terumi Mei, who was standing aside, "Let's go." "Ah, do you want to leave?" Terumi Mei was stunned, and the first reaction in her heart was that she didn't want to. Qing looked at her blankly and said in a deep voice, "We are ninjas from two villages. How can we have dinner together?" What Terumi Mei said about being an educated youth makes sense, but when she thought of having dinner with Yi Feng, she still wanted to celebrate becoming a chunin. Do you really want to refuse such a meaningful meal? After hesitating for a moment, she suddenly reached out and took off Kurigakure's forehead protector and hid it in her arms. Then, she showed a free and easy smile. "Wouldn't this way no one know that I am Kurigakure?" Qing glanced at her helplessly, shook his head and said, "You are one of the top 4, and your appearance has long been remembered." "Then I don't care, you can go alone." Terumi Mei sat struttingly on the stool, looking like a childish scoundrel. Ao felt even more helpless, but how could he let Terumi Mei stay alone? After giving Yi Feng a hard look, he sat next to Terumi Mei again. Yi Feng turned a blind eye to his gaze, only feeling that things were getting more interesting and full of expectations for what would happen next. He waved behind him and said to Nono Uhakura and others, "Come over and sit down." The three of them stood aside in silence, taking in everything that had just happened. Although the doubts in their hearts became more and more intense, and they always felt that the atmosphere had become strange, they had no intention of leaving. They all obeyed Yi Feng's instructions and took their seats one by one. For a moment, 6 people sat around the table and looked at each other. Nanoyu sat on the right side of Yi Feng, looked at Yi Kang, Terumi and Mei Mei, and met Yuhi Hong's eyes, with a vague intention of questioning. But Kurenai Yuhi was even more confused than she was. If she hadn't gone to watch the Chunin exam competition today, she wouldn't even know these people. After realizing this, Nanoyu took a deep look at Yi Feng, feeling melancholy in his heart. What a carefree kid. In just a few days, he actually hooked up with a girl from another village who took the exam together. Did he take the Chunin exam or go to the beauty pageant? And, isn't he worried about not getting love at all? Maybe in the near future, they will meet on the battlefield. How sad and desolate will it be then? And Yuhi Hong is not stupid. Ever since she saw Yi Kang, she had an inexplicable feeling. Yi Feng must have some kind of relationship with these two girls. Maybe, they are two competitors again. Thinking of this, Yuri Hong secretly glared at Yi Feng. She had always felt that she was her real girlfriend. But no, Nayu was just a vixen who seduced Yi Feng by saving his life. But it wasn't until this moment that she realized that she was wrong. No, Nayu did not seduce Yi Feng. Maybe Yi Feng made the move first. What a playboy. How can you treat yourself like this? It's too much. Yu Hong stared at him fiercely, her eyes slightly red. But with her strong nature, she will not be knocked down by such a setback. Although she wanted to question Yifeng on the spot, today was really a day worth celebrating, and the current occasion was not appropriate. Thinking of this, Shirahong suppressed her tears and sat quietly on the left side of Yifeng with a faint smile on her face. Yifeng didn't notice that her mood was wrong. He was talking to the boss at the moment and ordering various barbecues very proudly. Yi Kang sat quietly, inexplicably feeling that the atmosphere at the moment was a bit strange. This made her, who was already regretful, regret even more. But the thought of leaving came up several times, but her legs felt like they were filled with lead, unable to move. There always seemed to be a voice in her heart telling her, "Don't, never leave." Just like that, Yi Kang sat in silence, occasionally looking at others, but most of the time, his eyes fell on Yifeng. As for Terumi Mei, she was looking at Nono and Yuhi Kurenai in surprise at this moment. Originally, she thought that Yifeng would be the only one to celebrate with them. After Hu Chengshang agreed, he actually found 3 more people to come over, and except for Yi Kang, whom he had met before, the other 2 seemed to be hostile to her. How could Terumi Mei not understand what this kind of hostility meant? She looked at Yifeng with amusement in her eyes. But at the same time, there was something wrong in her heart, with a hint of jealousy. However, she didn't think too much. Instead, she became curious about the complicated relationship between Yifeng and the 3 of them. It was not difficult for her to see that Nanoyu was probably the oldest among the girls present. Although I can't say how old he is definitely much older than Yifeng. From this point of view, the story between the 2 of them must be very mysterious. As for the other Kurenai Yuhi, one could tell at a glance that she was of the same age as them and belonged to their childhood sweethearts. Terumi Mei was also very curious about the story between her and Yifeng, and even had fantasies in her mind. Qing on the side looked at her cheerful look, and couldn't help but feel bitter in her heart. Terumi Mei is the proud daughter of Kurigakure, with excellent talent and stunning beauty. Even her temperament is very different from that of ordinary women, free and easy with a charming laziness. With such charm, there are almost no young men in Kurigakure who are not intoxicated by her. Qing Zaran is no exception. But this is the world of ninjas, where talent determines almost everything. His talent is pretty good, but compared to Terumi Mei, he is like Yingwo and Haoyu, not at the same level. So he could only hide his love in his heart and silently protect the other person. I believe this is what most teenagers in Kurigakure do. After all, Terumi Mei's talent is so strong that almost no one can match her. If you want to pursue such a woman, the psychological pressure is not ordinary. As for this trip to Konoha, Aohara was still a little excited. He finally had the opportunity to accompany Terumi Mei. But until the Chunin examination was held, the appearance of a person completely shattered the illusion in his heart. That is, Yifeng. This young man's talent and strength have completely subverted his cognition. And he knew even more clearly that for ignorant girls, this kind of existence was like a star, with a fatal temptation to them. Look at Terumi Mei now, with a curious look on her face and her eyes staring straight at Yifeng. This is not a good sign. Qing gritted his teeth angrily, but did not stand up forcefully to stop him. In terms of emotions, he still has some experience. At this moment, Terumi Mei met a peer who surpassed her in both talent and strength for the first time, and her heart was filled with curiosity and the admiration of a girl. But as long as she is not given more opportunities to interact with Yifeng, this curiosity and admiration will not turn into love. When she leaves Konoha tomorrow, Terumi Mei will gradually forget about this incident and leave the opportunity of her heart to the Kurigakure boys. As for the meal in front of us, it is just a meal and it does not take much time. What's more, there are so many people watching, Qing wouldn't believe it even to death. Just like this, Yifeng and Terumi Mei can still have the spark of love. Thinking of this, Qing gradually relaxed and turned his attention to Yifeng and others. But not long after he looked at it, a sad expression appeared on his face, as if he was eating shit. He has discovered that the 2 girls sitting next to Yifeng both have stunning looks, and their every smile is heartwarming. And they all cuddled up to Yifeng, and their behavior was more intimate than ordinary friends. How could Qing not see their relationship? She was horrified and at the same time, she couldn't help but feel a little envious. But that's not all. Yi Kang's little moves that kept looking at Yifeng were also noticed by him. And what this means is self-evident. For a time, Qing's heart became full of mixed feelings, mostly envy. It would be great if I also had such strong talent and strength. When the time comes, Terumi-mei will definitely favor him. He can even be like Yifeng, hugging him from left to right and constantly winning the favor of other girls. Thinking of this, Qing couldn't help but feel a little excited. But when he came back to his senses, he only felt endless decline. Human beings' joys and sorrows are not the same, I just think they are noisy. Looking at Yifeng and others who were gradually chatting freely, Qing suddenly felt a sense of being out of place. Although they were sitting together, their souls had already been squeezed out of the outside world. At this moment, the table was filled with barbecue filled with rich aroma, but Qing had no appetite and even thought of leaving. But after much thought, he really didn't want to leave Terumi-mei alone. He was not worried about her safety, he was just afraid that Yifeng would steal Terumi-mei's heart while he was gone. This is extremely possible. Qing put himself in his shoes and thought that if he were a girl, he would also have feelings for Yifeng. Outstanding appearance, powerful strength, evil talent, and he is from the largest clan in Konoha. From all aspects, Yifeng is extremely perfect. It is so easy to make the ignorant girl feel passionate. Thinking of this, Qing angrily picked up the barbecue and gulped it down. He watched silently, always paying attention to Yifeng's every move, wary of the charm he exuded towards Mei Ming. He thought so much, but in fact Yifeng didn't have that much thought. He did so much just to beat Yuhihong and Nanoyu. Let them know that they can't survive without them. There are no toads with 3 legs, but women with 2 legs are plentiful. Secretly glancing at the two people's well-behaved looks, Yifeng was so happy that he picked up the barbecue and ate it happily. Congratulations to everyone for becoming Chunin. Let's celebrate today. He looked at everyone with a smile on his face. If they were not all underage, they would have ordered some soju and drank it. Terumi-mei and Hagura both smiled, becoming Chunin was indeed worth celebrating for them. For a time, the whole dinner became lively, several people chatted, and the strange atmosphere slowly subsided. Only Qing had a grimace on his face, which was incompatible with the current atmosphere and would not fit in no matter what. Who makes these women only care about Yifeng? Everyone chatted freely and gradually became familiar with each other. Terumi-mei looked at Yifeng and the others with curiosity, and couldn't help but ask, "What is the relationship between you 3? Her eyes lingered on the 3 of them, full of exploration. Yuhihong and Nanoyu looked at each other, not knowing how to answer, and both looked at Yifeng in the middle. Yifeng was quite calm and said frankly, "In my opinion, they are all my favorite women. If possible, I want to protect them for the rest of my life." Seeing Yifeng's frank look, Nanoyu and Yuhihong both felt deep in their hearts. "But whenever I think about sharing Yifeng with other women, I feel very uncomfortable." For a moment, both of them looked a little unnatural, shy and slightly angry at the same time. And Yi Kang felt a slight sting in his heart when he saw Yifeng unabashedly expressing his love for the 2 of them. She didn't know what was wrong with her, her mood suddenly dropped and she felt a little lost. There are even some complaints, "Why, that person is not me." As for Terumi-mei, she gradually showed an appreciative smile as she listened to Yifeng's candid words. Although she disliked Yifeng's philandering, his frank manner was very free and easy, especially to her liking. Unknowingly, she recalled the scene before she fell into coma in the Forest of Death. Yifeng came closer, stretched out his hand and opened her lips. Although it was just a simple action, for Terumi-mei, it was the first time since she was a child that the opposite gender touched her lips. When she thought of that unique touch, accompanied by the dizziness when she was unconscious, Terumi-mei couldn't help but feel ashamed. However, she didn't think too much and quickly adjusted her mood and started talking freely with everyone again. After a while, the meal came to an end. I saw a mess on the table, full of leftovers, mostly gnawed bones. Seeing that he was full and full, Qing stood up immediately and said to Yifeng, "Thank you very much for the hospitality. It's getting late. We have to leave as early as possible tomorrow, so we won't stay for a while." After Qing finished speaking, he turned his gaze to Terumi-mei, indicating that it was time for her to leave. Terumi-mei also understood this and did not refute. He stood up and walked to Qing's side. She glanced at everyone, then said with a slight smile, "Goodbye everyone, I hope the next time we meet is not on the battlefield." After saying that, Terumi-mei walked outside, feeling empty in her heart. She didn't know where this feeling came from. Maybe she regarded everyone as friends and was a little reluctant to let go. Or maybe she is thinking of someone in her heart and is reluctant to part with him. Confused, Xianao, who was chasing him, stepped out and walked towards the house where Kurigakure was resting. In the store, Yi Kang sat a little stiffly. Terumi Mei's words when she left just now deeply hurt her. Will we meet on the battlefield? Yi Kang's shoulders trembled slightly, and the next moment, she stood up silently and walked directly outside. Yi Feng didn't say anything about this. At this moment, he was more concerned about the two beauties beside him. This time, he really destroyed their prestige, but the pleasure of abusing his wife was temporary and he was cremated afterwards. Now, he has felt the oppressive atmosphere. Let's go. Yi Feng looked at the two of them with a very indifferent smile. Yu Hihong and Nanoyu looked at each other and stood up in silence. Afterwards, the three of them slowly walked out of the store and came to the streets where the excitement had not diminished at all. But the three of them had no intention of going shopping. Yi Feng said to them, "Let's send Shiraihong back first." Nanoyu nodded and had no objection to this, and Yu Hihong herself could not find any reason to object. The three of them walked together and headed to Yu Hihong's house. Gradually, the three of them moved away from the downtown area, and the surroundings became quiet. After continuing to walk for a while, No Naiyu and Yi Feng looked at each other and noticed something strange. They are being followed. Yi Feng continued walking, very confused about the purpose of the stalker behind him. You know, this is the territory of Konoha village, and as long as there is a little bit of fighting, countless Anbu will be attracted. Therefore, the people following them, whether from the enemy village or from their own village, should have no intention of taking action. If you look at it that way, is it just surveillance? But is it necessary for me and my group to be monitored? Yi Feng was puzzled. After hesitating for a while, he decided that it would be better to investigate clearly. The next moment, he and No Naiyu looked at each other and nodded. Nanoyu understood what he meant, and then stopped paying attention and relaxed. Quietly, Yi Feng formed a secret seal, created a shadow clone and continued to move forward. The main body sneaked into the shadows covertly and moved toward the stalker's location. Yu Hihong knew nothing about all this, her lips moved slightly, as if she had something to say. But she seemed to have some concerns. She opened her mouth again and again, but she didn't say anything. Nanoyu noticed this and knew in his heart that he should give them some space to communicate. But at this moment, Yi Feng is just a shadow clone, so let's wait until the real body comes back. For a while, the three of them remained silent, and under the moonlight, the shadows grew longer and longer. In a shadow, Yi Feng moved forward quietly, approaching the stalker's position in the blink of an eye. Call out. He suddenly jumped out and saw a sneaky figure around the corner. Yi Feng did not hesitate, drew out his dagger and rushed forward, intending to subdue the opponent immediately. The other party obviously did not expect that Yi Feng would suddenly appear, and he was stunned on the spot. Yi Feng quickly attached it without any politeness, and the blade glowed with an astonishing cold light under the moonlight. But as the two approached, the distance quickly shortened. Yi Feng suddenly saw the stalker's face clearly and shouted in surprise. Why you? Yuhi Kurenai and the other three kept moving forward, and in the blink of an eye, they saw the Yuhi family's house in the distance. After arriving here, Yu Hihong gradually became anxious and her pace slowed down a lot. No Naiyu and Yi Feng's shadow clones looked at each other, neither of them knew what happened next. If a battle breaks out, it will never be so quiet. But why hasn't Yi Feng come back? Could it be that the person following him knows him? No Yue frowned slightly, first ruling out the idea that Yi Feng was in danger. After all, Konoha has stepped up its vigilance during this period, and is always on guard against other ninja villages taking the opportunity to cause trouble. If you want to kidnap Yi Feng silently, you will probably have to be a movie-level person. But Nanoyu believed that the shadows in each village were strictly monitored and it was completely impossible to escape. Thinking of this, Nanoyu already had some guesses and completely let go of his worries. After having an idea, Nanoyu no longer delayed and said to the two of them, "You guys can have a chat, I will go back first." Yi Fengying's clone glanced at her and knew very well that nothing could happen to the original body, so he warned, "Be careful on the road." "Don't worry." Nanoyu waved his hand, walked into another street, and quickly disappeared. Yu Hihong looked at her back and silently said thank you in her heart. She is not stupid, she can see that no Nayu is making room for her and Yifeng. If you go too far, you can even stay next to the two of them and let her continue to hesitate. Taking a deep breath, Yurihong stopped thinking and looked at Yifeng with her dark red eyes. She asked slightly uneasily, "Do you really like me?" Hearing these words, Yifeng's eyes suddenly softened. Although he is a shadow clone, his emotions and personality are exactly the same as his original body. All his responses will not be significantly different from the original body. The next moment, I heard him say softly, "Of course I really like you. As I said, I want to protect you all my life." Yurihong smiled, but when she heard, "you," her smile instantly dimmed a bit. "Can't you just like me?" Yifeng felt helpless in his heart, but he also knew that this was a thought that every normal woman would have. Reality is not fiction after all. As long as you show off your domineering spirit, countless beauties will fall in love with you. But Yifeng lives his whole life again, hoping to live freely and do as he pleases. He really wanted to try the feeling of the harem and enjoy the feeling of the ancient emperor. Yifeng opened his mouth, but before he could finish speaking, a small hand pressed his lips. Yuri's eyes were slightly red, with tears flashing in them. "Don't say it. If you can do it, come find me here tomorrow. If you can't, then forget it," Yurihong said decisively, then ran towards the door and ran into the house. Yifeng watched this scene silently and had a deeper understanding of Yurihong's perseverance. He really didn't expect that Yurihong would be so decisive. If he couldn't just like her, he would simply give up. Compared with Nono Yu, she can be regarded as a true heroine among girls. However, Yifeng does not intend to give up on his wish. After all, he must enjoy more when he relives his life. If Yurihong doesn't want to, just end it here to avoid hurting others. Yifeng thought like this, turned around and walked into the dark street, and the seal disappeared into the air. In a street not far away, the main body Yifeng suddenly felt something, and a memory appeared in his mind. But at this moment, he did not deal with it leisurely, and stared at the person in front of him with confusion. "Yi Kang, why are you following us?" Yi Kang, who was in a depressed mood, glanced at Yifeng and said angrily, "I'm not following you." "Then what are you doing here? This doesn't seem to be the direction to Sunagakur Courtyard, right?" Yifeng couldn't help but laugh. Yi Kang frowned. Ever since she walked out of the barbecue restaurant, her whole person had fallen into a haze. She wanted to return to Sunagakur's courtyard, but after taking a few steps, she felt an inexplicable reluctance in her heart. Unknowingly, he followed Yifeng and the other two people as they left. As for why, even she herself is not very clear. But she was not someone who would give in easily, so she immediately said harshly, "Don't worry about me." Yifeng smiled, got closer and asked, "You must be reluctant to leave me, right?" "How is that possible?" Yi Kang was startled, his eyes involuntarily avoiding him. At the same time, a realization gradually emerged in her heart, and she vaguely seemed to understand the reason for her reluctance. Maybe, it really has something to do with Yifeng. But how could she admit it? In a hurry, she immediately buried her head and walked out. Yifeng chased after him, and through the hazy moonlight, he vaguely seemed to see the blush on Yi Kang's face. "I am indeed very charming." Yifeng smiled softly and said to Yi Kang, "I'll take you back." Before Yi Kang could respond, Yifeng suddenly grabbed her hand and ran towards the downtown area quickly. Naturally, Yi Kang would not accept such an outrageous move and quickly started to struggle. But her strength was weaker than Yifeng. After struggling, her palms were still tightly held by Yifeng. "Let me go." She gritted her silver teeth, her face full of anger. For a moment, Yifeng felt that the surrounding air became extremely hot, and it was about to condense into a burning fireball. But he was not worried. Instead, he asked Yi Kang gently, "You like me, right?" "Nonsense," Yi Kang retorted immediately, but the strength of her struggle weakened a lot in an instant and gradually disappeared. From the beginning, she realized that the reluctance in her heart was mainly because of Yifeng's existence. Is it because of hatred? It seems that I have forgotten it long ago. Love? It seems not, but inexplicably, she just couldn't bear to leave Konoha. Want? To see someone all the time. It seems that you haven't realized your own heart yet. Yifeng smiled and gently touched Yi Kang's palm. That caressing movement made Yi Kang feel uncomfortable for a while, but there was a faint sweetness in his heart. For a moment, Her thoughts were extremely messy, and she was unable to determine what her feelings were for Yifeng. The only thing she knew clearly was that she no longer resisted him. Seeing that Yi Kang didn't respond, Yifeng didn't say anything anymore. He could tell that Yi Kang was very confused at the moment and needed to think quietly. In this way, the two held hands in silence and walked around the streets of Konoha. After a while, the two came to Konoha Avenue and entered the busiest place. Yifeng and Yi Kang walked through it. Due to the height difference, they looked quite like a pair of siblings. However, Yifeng didn't care about this. He dragged the silent Yi Kang around and gradually stopped in front of a vendor. "Would you like to pick out a gift?" The boss looked at the two of them and suddenly had a premonition that business was coming. Yifeng shook Yi Kang's arm and said softly, "Pick one, I'll give it to you." Yi Kang came back to his senses, but still didn't understand the emotions in his heart, and said silently, "You choose." Yifeng didn't force himself. His eyes wandered around the stall, occasionally flashing his eyes. After some selection, he took out 2 pieces of jewelry and said to the boss, "I want these 2. The boss immediately laughed, took the silver coins excitedly, bowed slightly and said, "Thank you for your patronage." After putting away the 2 gifts, Yifeng and Yi Kang continued to move forward, gradually moving away from Konoha Avenue. Slowly, the surroundings became deserted again. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos.